This is our regular meeting on Thursday, March 13th at 6 p.m. And it is in person and virtual, being broadcast via teleconference. Members of the public wishing to address this Historic Preservation Commission on items appearing on the agenda are requested to complete a speaker's card, if in person, and file it with the secretary. Cards are available in the lobby. Speakers should state their name and address for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. And right now, I just have one card. That's it? Okay. Want to stand for the pledge?
Okay. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We'll go on to, is there public communication?
I'm sorry, can we go back to call to order and roll call?
Yeah.
Oh,
Cool.
I missed the roll call. Roll call, please.
She's on her way back there. She went to make copies of the agenda. I just saw her.
Okay.
Ida, as soon as you can, roll call, please.
Okay. Chair McCann,
Here.
Vice Chair Sims,
Here.
Commissioner Akins,
Here.
Commissioner Vistasha,
Here.
Commissioner Walker,
Here.
Commissioner Moore,
Here.
Commissioner Levitt.
All right. Do we have public communication? On items that are not on our agenda? No? Okay. Brian, do you have a museum report?
I do. So the maps exhibit that we had that was fabulously popular with people going back in time is always fun. But coming up is also something quite interesting. So coming up, opening reception next third Friday, which is March 21st, from 5 to 7. It's called Hands, Head, and Heart. It is a fiber art show. And the curator, as I was helping move different things, Heavier pointed out to me this cylinder, and it was a composition of many things, but she pointed out that the mushrooms in there actually ate the oil-based products that were in there. And I'm like, good mushrooms. Plant more mushrooms. So anyway, that's coming up. Great exhibit. A little different for us, but we're very happy to have it there. So again, the 21st. Thank you.
Are there any tours coming up?
Any tours coming
The
up?
historic tours and
Other than I think the street tours are open. Not that I know of. They are going to do, I think, 3 town talks with these individuals.
Great.
So they'll have time to come and speak with people. Always interesting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now we go to consent item number 1. It's the minutes from the December 12th regular meeting. Wait, no, sorry. That's where I get mixed up. I'll get this down. Of the February 13th regular meeting. Does anybody have any corrections?
I had one clarification.
Okay.
So, okay, so if you go to page 4 of 7, go down to the bottom just before the motion. There's, it says Commissioner Akins reported on his correspondence with the owners, and this is the discussion that's talking about the State Historic District. So I just wanted to clarify that that was correspondence with the owners as regards the Ojai Civic Center Historic District, not the State Historic District. So if we could just get that clarification in, I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
I'm sorry, excuse me. Say that again, please. It was in regards to,
The Ojai Civic Center Historic District,
Okay.
not the State Historic District.
thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted that clarification. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any changes? No? Okay, anybody want to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I will make a motion to approve the minutes.
We have a second?
I'll second.
We do roll call?
McCann,
Yes?
Sims,
Yes.
Akins,
Yes.
Visasha,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Levitt.
Yes.
Okay, now we're going to item number 2. Do you have a staff report?
I do, thank you. Before I begin, I want to say that I believe there are agendas out at the front on the table out there that are accurate or for today's meeting, and we'll take that. Thanks. Can you pass that down, please? Thank you. So this is a request for a recommendation to the City Council from the Historic Preservation Commission for 2 miscellaneous permits, requesting designation as a City of Ojai historic landmark and also a historic property agreement between the property owner and the city, and also to provide comments to the Planning Commission regarding the proposed project analysis. This is all for Mallory Way, located at 412 Mallory Way. The property was developed as a motor lodge between 1947 and 49 by John W. Raines, with a series of cottages. In the 80s, the buildings were converted to rental units. There are currently 21 buildings with a total of 25 residential units. In 2023, a settlement agreement was entered into between the city and the property owner that required several things, including, but not limited to, the rehabilitation of the existing units, the addition of units up to 58 units total, that a request by the applicant or property owner for landmark designation and Mills Act be filed, and also there was an allowance within the settlement agreement for development up to 2-story structures. In 2024, the property owner submitted applications requesting the property be designated as a City of Ojai landmark and enter into a Mills Act agreement as required by the settlement agreement. And they also submitted an application for a design review permit. The current submittal includes a proposal to construct 33 new residential units in 31 separate buildings while retaining the existing buildings on the site. So this would be for a total of 58 units, as agreed upon in the settlement agreement, along with various site improvements. As seen in the proposed plans that are in your packet, the applicant has worked to maintain a single-story development and has not proposed 2 stories. Per the settlement agreement, each of the existing units, residential units, will have interior remodels as they become vacated by tenants. Exterior improvements, on the other hand, can be performed while the current tenants are in their residence. The requested Mills Act agreement with the city ultimately includes a property tax reduction from the county, which in turn contributes to the improvements included in the agreement with the city for restoration and maintenance maintaining the integrity of the existing historic resources. The proposed project analysis that's in your packet, prepared by Page and Turnbull, reviews previously prepared historic reports, and those are listed in in the staff report in your packet. The analysis from Page and Turnbull presents the history of the site and features its significance and character-defining features. Based on the city's municipal code and Secretary of Interior standards, the analysis evaluates the existing site and as it includes the proposed development. And I'm going to interrupt myself to just ask, Ida, do we have Page and Turnbull, I think the name is Hannah, online tonight?
There's no one online.
Okay, thanks. Maybe they'll show up in a little bit. The analysis by Page and Turnbull includes recommendations to further ensure compliance with the standards of the interior and that the property retain local landmark eligibility. So these recommendations from Page and Turnbull are that new stone walls at the existing cottages should have a slightly different stone material or pattern from the existing walls so that they can be distinguished as new construction. And that would be in compliance with standard number 9 of the standards of Secretary of the Interior standards. All original exterior features at existing cottages should be repaired rather than replaced. on existing drawings, this is only noted relative to existing siding, but it applies to all exterior features. Sandblasting, high-pressure water, orbital sanders, or other harsh abrasive methods should not be used for cleaning or removing any paint. If paint removal is required or it's damaged or deteriorated, it should be removed only to the next layer using a gentle method like hand scraping.
Maura, she's online.
Okay, great. And I just wanted to know, thank you. For the prefabricated units, the configuration, material, and color options are in Figure 9 on page 30 of the analysis, which is in your packet. The roof color that's recommended is just dark, cladding horizontal, base colors green or darker shades of white and gray. Black and bright white are not recommended recommended to not be appropriate. Window and doors, awnings are appropriate over, awnings are appropriate over windows and doors and doorways. Solar options are included in the plans that are in your packet. The retention and relocation of the wishing well on site is recommended, and it's recommended to consider replacing missing stones around the edges of the landscape areas. And if the driveway and parking areas cannot be gravel or compact aggregate, we're there to consider a simple poured asphalt or concrete paving. That's most compatible with historic motor courts. So the analysis concludes that the project meets several criteria necessary to be considered eligible for city, state, and national landmark designation. The analysis also lists character-defining features or contributing features. It also includes non-contributing features and concludes that the site is overall consistent with the Secretary of the Interior's rehabilitation standards. The proposed project analysis summarizes that the previous evaluations concluded that the site complies with the criteria A, C, and D. A is its character, interest, or value as part of the historic development, heritage, or cultural characterization of the community. C is relates to its embodiment of distinguishing characteristics of an architectural style valuable for study of a period of time. And H is its suitability for preservation or restoration. And for those reasons, it's therefore recommended or eligible for a city landmark. I want to note that there are a couple revisions in your packet that I want to make sure I bring to your attention before you bring them to mine. And in the staff report, page 3 of 5 includes that there are 21 existing cottages of the character, or in the character defining features. However, there are 19, and that's stated in the proposed project analysis on page 29 of 99.
I'm sorry, what page is your staff, what page gets changed?
Page 35 of 5 in the staff report. At the, what did I say?
35 of
Oh, I'm sorry, 3 of 5. It states that there are 21 existing cottages under the character-defining contributing features. It's like two-thirds of the way down the page. There are 19. And in order to find this in the proposed project analysis, it would be on page 29 of 99. This correction will be made in the Mills Act agreement and the landmark designation HPC resolutions prior to signatures. So these are things to be revised. On page 405, under project improvement recommendations toward the bottom, it mentions solar options, and it's a little awkward there. Where it says solar options, there are 2 options that are included in the project analysis, and that's what these are referring to. On page 5 of 5, there should be a second CEQA determination that didn't make it into the staff report, but it is in the resolution. The exemption is based on 14 of the California, what is it called? California,
The California,
Uh,
the regulations, basically.
thank you, yeah, I know this like all the time, and all of a sudden I can't say it.
California
this-
Code of Regulations.
Code of Regulations, okay, section 15331. And what it states is really what's most important, and that is that this section, 15331, consists of projects limited to maintenance, repair, stabilization, rehabilitation, restoration, preservation, conservation, or reconstruction of historical resources in a manner consistent with the Secretary of the Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties, with guidelines for preserving, rehabilitating, restoring, and reconstructing historic buildings. So here, the Mills Act agreement serves to rehabilitate the existing cottages. Another correction or revision to the staff report, Exhibit 1 to Attachment B, page 3 of 10, number 4, includes that a reference to post-Hazelton and a post-Hazelton document. This should read, Page and Turnbull, dated February 4th, 2025. It's not so that's an error in the report. And the character defining features shall be replaced with, and I can list them out verbally right now, and I will do that, but I want you to know that they are in your report. They're in Page and Turnbull. They just didn't make it into this exhibit. And those character defining features are cottage form and massing, gable roofs with overhanging eaves and exposed rafter tails, wood knee braces, fenestration pattern and original wood windows, beveled tongue and groove siding or drop siding on the former manager's cottage, vertical wood boards with scalloped bottoms in the gable ends, stone patio walls and steps, the wishing well, the semicircular driveway, the stones lining the landscape areas, the culvert and lined creek, the shuffleboard court, and mature landscaping. So I just want to make sure that you have all of these corrections. Yes?
So on page 29 of 99, Exhibit 1 to Attachment A, I just followed what you read. So it is in the report.
I'm
thought you were
talking
saying-
about Exhibit 1 to Attachment B, page 3 of 4.
Which is
Okay.
the Mills Act agreement.
That's, oh, sorry, thank you. That's the Mills Act agreement. So the
Oh,
Mills
okay,
Act
I'm just
agreement
reading all of those in,
in the staff report.
okay,
Okay, but the Mills Act agreement needs to be revised before
I see.
it moves forward.
Great, thank you very much.
If, of course, the HPC recommends that, well, actually, I guess it's along with the HPC's recommendation, it will go to council. So, and with that, I want to repeat that the HPC is here this evening after having been presented with and had the opportunity to review, and then you'll be able to discuss and ask questions. And we do have the applicant here tonight, and we have the developer, and we have the historian, and you will be making a recommendation to the city council regarding the historic landmark designation, and also Mills Act agreement with the city. And also, you'll be making comments to the planning commission regarding the site plan, the site development.
And then we jumped over the disclosure of site visits and ex parte.
So now that I'm finished,
Yeah.
I'll hand it right back to you.
So I visited the site, and I met with the property owners, and I was with Loren when I went on. Did anybody else visit?
And
Randy?
I visited, and I just want to say that I've met Mr. Becker before and looked for industrial property with one of his brokers or agents. And I had asked at one point if he had any property for sale in Ojai, and he said he did not. But I just wanted to disclose that. But it's not going to affect me, and I didn't buy any property with him.
Well, I met them on Friday, I think it was, or Thursday with Brian
last week.
last week, right? And it was just a nice visit and saw the whole property, and I understand what's going on over there.
So I've been to the property many times over the many years that I've lived here, just in visiting it or visiting people there. A few months ago, I was contacted by Mr. Becker to go and take a tour. And I called Mara to verify that, and then took a very nice tour with Mr. Becker. She reminded me that the tour was a part of the agreement. I also sat, since I always sit in the front row, I gave up one of my seats so either Mr. Becker could sit with his wife or his wife could sit with him in one of those 3-4 hour hearings that took place. And then I took the tour with Laurel and with both of the owners again at that same time, and to get an update on what we did. But I don't even live in the city of Ojai, so.
Craig? And
Yes, I'm one that's been there many times over the years. It was built in about the same year I was born, and I grew up in Ojai and have known this property since I was a little kid, riding my bike around there and going to visit various people that I've known over the years that may have lived there or had a friend there or something else. So I'm familiar with the property from the beginning, pretty much. And also, about a few weeks ago, I met with Mr. Becker and we walked around and he showed me the property, so I got a good look at what it looks like today.
and then Rick?
I didn't make any tours because I was out of town, but I've been walking past the place for the last 35 years, walking my dogs by there, and I always take great interest in it. And my wife has swum in the pool before and has known people who lived there, so she's shared some stories with me. So I'm familiar with it kind of anecdotally and just from walking by.
Okay.
And I wanted to share something that wasn't in the report, but when I would visit a friend of mine there in the 70s, I don't know if it was there from the beginning, but the building behind the pool had a sauna in it. People would go to the sauna and then jump in the pool. So you can add that to your list of non-existent contributing.
All right. So now we're going to take it to public comment. We do that before we have a discussion?
Do you have questions first of me, and then we can let the applicant speak once you're finished with me?
Does anybody have any questions for Maura?
And then, so if the applicant would like to go to the podium and state his name, if he has anything to add, or if you have questions of him.
Thank you, Commissioner Chair and Commission members. Thanks for visiting the property as well. Jeff Becker with Ojai Bungalows, my partner, Ben Jonker, is here as well. Some of you met him. And we also have our architect, Jason Herber, who's kind of helped us redesign the property, which of course has gone on during this past year once we signed the settlement agreement with the city. Hannah from Page Turnbull is also on the call if there's questions about the historic report and her review of that. So we spent a fair amount of time trying to figure out how to rework the project from our original approvals that we had years back. And, our plan is to obviously save the cottages that are there, try to bring those up over time, upgrade them. They are obviously have had a great run, but, they need to be upgraded. The infrastructure, which is a big part of it, has to be done, whether it's sewer, electrical, plumbing, all of it we have to go through. But we're happy to move forward with it. We've tried to come up with something that will work to provide the number of units that we were trying to achieve with the city, part of the settlement, and still do those with a one-story type concept without going 2 stories. So it's a lot to get accomplished. You guys have been out to the site. There's a lot going on there. But we're here to answer any questions you have and give you any kind of feedback that you need. So appreciate that.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions now?
Well, I have one question, and I don't know if this is even relevant now, and there's other more important questions, but it just comes to mind. So when I walk by there, there's a horse out front, a little horse tie ring that is damaged, and I'm not sure that, I think it was mentioned somewhere in the report, but is that and things like that, like the wishing well, are those being considered to be retained on the site? And also, like, have you considered actually returning the signs that were on the buildings that have the names of the horses, which, you know, the whole complex it was sort of a theme of it?
Right.
Could you comment on that?
Yes, I think that horse hook, we'll call it, that's one of the only remaining ones. It's kind of half there, as I remember. So at present, we are relocating the wishing well, but we really haven't talked about, you know, replicating maybe the horse ties that might have existed there. We're certainly open to that. Or putting the names of them. We haven't gotten to that point.
Okay, thank you. But it's something that you might have in mind to consider.
Certainly.
This is a tie-in to the past,
Yeah,
little
certainly.
elements. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
I have a question. So, having, you know, sat through 4 hours, 4 hours, 4 hours, and watched it go back and forth in different things, you know, it was finally felt like it was finalized, and then out of what seemed somewhere, the agreement came out. And part of that agreement included the reason we're meeting here tonight. And I asked you, who was the party that was most interested in what we're seeing tonight? Who was pushing for it? Because it, as I also explained, in those 12 hours worth of hearings, the historic nature was never a focus of that. There were other things. I told during that time period I was the chair. I told the mayor that the HPC was not planning on getting involved in those those hearings, but if the council wanted us to, we would. And then all of a sudden that the agreement comes out, and so I asked you, you know, who was the party that was behind that, and you said, well, I think mainly the residents wanted it landmarked. Is that correct?
One,
Did I get that right?
One, I'll say I'll try to put that time frame behind me. You know, it was a lot involved in all of that, and a lot of misinformation. But that was a combination, I think, of the interest in saving the units, and as part of that, designated as historic. And our original prior project also had 7 of the units that were going to be reworked and brought up to standard. That was our prior approval for this site, along with 23 new units. So it was a combination of things, but you know, there was a lot flying around in the air during that time,
Mhm.
Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
A lot. So that was just a part of what came out of it. And the settlement came together very quickly.
It did.
I mean, you know, not by our choosing. The whole thing was just something that ultimately came out of it, you know, after 2 years of back and forth.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any more comments for anyone? Should we open it for the public now? Okay. So my first card I have is Tim Kraut. Thank you.
I think I had marked for the non-item, I had marked it
Okay, it just says or with an X, so I don't know what item. What item did you?
Well, for no items, I just wanted to make a public comment.
Okay, all right,
I didn't mark it for a certain item, right?
okay. Because I had asked if anybody had any general public comments.
Yeah,
and
I had a general public comment.
So you can return to that now if you'd like,
Okay,
and then open back up.
Can we do that? Can we open up to general public comment?
Just please state your name. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Tim Kraut. I've been in Ojai Valley for about 60 years. And tonight, I just wanted to bring to your attention this final report from the Ojai Valley Green Coalition that did an analysis here of the campus about a year ago. And in that report, there was a arborist that did an arbor report on all the trees here. And I just wanted to bring to your attention that a lot of the trees on this property are very hazardous in the report. And some of the hazardous trees are near your buildings. So I wondered if you guys are any of you aware of this report? Oh, Brian is? Okay.
Mhm.
So that was done about a year ago. And again, some of the trees are near the city hall or near the carriage or near the pickleball courts down here by the gazebo. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. And maybe you guys might want to look into that. And because the arborist calls out that 28 trees on this property needs to be removed and are hazardous. So I thought maybe before the Green Coalition finishes their report on the campus, that you might want to address those trees. Because they do call out that they're hazardous, some are safety issues. And so before they maybe spend more money on a master plan, you might want to look at those trees. And I do have, I made a copy here, if somebody would like to look at it. You guys are welcome to it. And it's
I
very
can take that.
informative. Again,
Take it tomorrow.
arborist report,
Mhm.
the Jan Scrow, he did a
Yep.
very good job.
Yep.
And I think it's worth looking at. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have, now we're closing public comment.
Right, if
For
there are
general-
if there are no more public comments regarding something not on the agenda,
Well, Maddie just doesn't have anything checked. Was this? Okay. So I think that's it for that.
so you can
And-
close that and reopen.
Okay, so now Anita Krem? Hello.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I think it's a really good idea, the historic landmark, but I would like to read something from the Cottages Among the Flowers Conditions of Approval from December 2018, and this is section JCR-1, Historic Resources. So it states, open quotes, if during the course of construction, historic features are damaged or found to be deteriorated, they should be repaired rather than replaced. Where severity of deterioration requires replacement, the new features shall match the old on design, color, texture, and other visual qualities. Where possible, materials replacement of missing materials should be substantiated by documentary, physical, or pictured evidence, and accomplished in consultation with a qualified historic preservation professional. So I think it's important to get this in this one also. Also, the same verbiage is used in the CEQA mitigation negative declaration from 2007. And the conditions for approval, these same ones state that the CEQA mitigations must be followed, and of course you know this includes historic resources. So I would like to hear from the HPC who the qualified historic preservation professional is, and are they on site at Cottages? Will they be on site at Mallory Way to make sure? Because we've had some issues with this and even issues of following the conditions of approval. And we're still not sure it's happening with the historic resources at Cottages Among the Flowers. So it's really important to get this baked in early on this, and that the HPC takes some responsibility for who this historic professional is that is supposedly out there monitoring and making sure all this is happening, because it's really not evident that it is. So I would also like to point out that in these same conditions of approval for the cottages, it stipulates that on paving, it has to be low-impact materials such as gravel or crushed granite, and I kind of heard concrete mentioned here tonight. So I would also like to see that included in this whole thing, because partly our watershed, we're continuing to deplete our watershed through techniques that don't have to be used, that more water-friendly and watershed-friendly techniques can be used. The other thing that I would like to bring up is if any of you have been inside any of these cabins, or whatever you would like to call them, cottages at Mallory Way, some of them have these amazing vaulted ceilings and paneling along the walls on the interior, and it just would be a shame to see all that destroyed. So if there's any way to also put in there that some of these interior features that are spectacular, that they also are protected. Thank you.
We have Maddie Gadsby.
Hi. See if I can remember things, but I'm really glad to see this proposal for the property compared to the last time, and really happy that these cottages are going to be preserved and historic landmarked. I think they are very special, and I'm sure the people were kids and experienced what it's like up there. In addition, if you ever have a chance to go up there at night, if you haven't before, it is a very dark sky, and that is also part of what makes it feel like an old resort motel, is what I tell people. I live in an old resort motel. That's not quite accurate, but that's how I describe it to them. And I can't really tell from my ability to read the plans what the lighting will be, but I hope that it'll be not just matching the dark sky requirements, but above and beyond, to try and retain some of that, since there will be so many more people living there. And also really appreciate the size of the units in the new area. I do hope, as recommended, that the rock lining goes back. Doesn't have to be painted white, but kind of put back a lot of that, at least up in the new area. I mean, the existing landmark area that I hope will be landmarked. And there's something else. Oh, I do have a concern about the placement of 2 cottages, but I'm not thinking this is the place to talk about that. It doesn't impact the area that's, well, I guess the whole area is historic, but these 2. Right here. Yes. The location of those seems to be a very sensitive area, so I'm not sure what that solution would be, but okay, thank you.
Why is it sensitive?
It is, there's no buildings there currently, so a lot of this land is, some of it's open space, but it's on the opposite side of this creek that is a natural running creek. That's had a lot of work done on it recently, but it's still a natural running creek, and there's very little land space there. So it's between where the last Cottage Among the Flowers is and the storage area. I don't know how, I'm guessing you can't visualize that, but it's a very small piece of land. It's right on the creek, and I do have concerns about that. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment on this item? Can we close that? Okay, thank you.
I do want to open it up just in case the person from Page and Turnbull, if they have something to add. Clearly there aren't any questions for them, but just in case they have something to add. Is that Hannah? You know what, I'm going to assume she doesn't, or she would have raised her hand, right? Jeff is shaking his head. Hannah, did you want to say anything, or you're just here for
Hi,
questions?
can you hear me?
Yes, hi, Hannah.
Hi. I think Maura covered all the highlights really well early on, so I don't have anything in particular to add, but I'm happy to answer other questions. I think we're just, really pleased to see that all of the cottages will remain on the site in their current location, and that there's clearly been a lot of thought into evolving this project to where it is now. And I think this has gotten to a good balance of new units and preserving the character of the ones on the site. So I think that's reflected in the findings of our report.
Questions?
Any questions? Are the questions for the historian?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I have a question because when I was first.
We can't hear you.
I have some questions because when I was first reading this report, it struck me that what we were really talking about here was a historic district and not a landmark. A landmark focuses on a building, is the focus of the report, and the grounds are more just supporting the building. And it's from all the reports that we've read, the buildings themselves don't really have that much historic value. They only have value in terms of what they contribute to the district or the area, which is a 1940s motor court. So it's in terms of what they support, in terms of the whole structure, the whole layout, that make them historic. If you were just to take one of those buildings and put it downtown, it wouldn't be a historic building. And that was all supported in the documents that were in our paper. So I think that maybe led to a lot of my other questions as to why all the historic character-defining features have to do with the structures, with the buildings, and not with the grounds. Because when I was a kid and we were traveling across the country, we'd look for these motor courts because they all had a theme. They all had these repetitive buildings that would form a unit that would be around a courtyard. That's why I think they were called motor courts. And so it surprises me that that big courtyard, which has been there since the beginning of the whole property, almost 100 years ago, that courtyard is being taken out and other buildings are being put there. There's the courtyard. There's also the sitting area off to the one side that used to be in front of the office, and all of the spatial relationships. It talks in there about the modified semicircle of the visual connection, the spatial relationships between the buildings, and it seems like all of that is going to be lost because that area, almost every area on the property, is being filled with buildings with new construction. So I guess my question to you is that in your report, you spoke of it as a historic district. You analyzed it as a historic district, and you even have a map that shows the boundaries of the historic district. So I'm wondering why this has come to us as a landmark when the buildings themselves are just contributors to the district.
Commissioner Walker, I think that might be more of a legal question because I don't think Hannah makes that determination when she prepares the staff report and resolution. So I'll try to answer that question for you if you don't mind. I think the reason behind...
Okay, well, I would ask her whether she feels that what that area is more of a historic district than a landmark, because she works with this all the time.
Can you hear me still?
Yes, Hannah.
Hello?
Yes,
Okay,
Hannah, you're
great.
still online.
Yeah, so I think the point is well taken. I think that there's sort of a slight difference that we can parse out between a historic district and a historic site. So typically a historic district would have multiple legal parcels. So that's how we would describe something like a neighborhood where there's different legal parcels and one parcel could be contributing and another could be non-contributing. In this case, we have one legal property, but it is like you said, it is the site that is historic. It's not one building, it's a collection of buildings and landscape features and their relationship to each other. So that's why the character defining features include the cottages and some of the features of the cottages, because like you mentioned, motels and motor courts had different styles or themes, and this one was very much like rustic mountain cottage was kind of the aesthetic that they were going for. So the kind of those simple features and materials contribute to that. But then other landscape features such as the driveway, the stone lining, the culverted creek, the shuffleboard court, the wishing well, those are all called out as character defining features as well that contribute to the site character.
Well, the reason I had the question is I'm familiar with several other historic districts in the Ojai Valley, or ones that were analyzed as historic districts that are with one owner. The Thatcher School is a historic district when they have all their buildings and they have the contributors and the non-contributors. The Krishnamurti Library off of McAndrew is a historic property, and it's all one owner and one parcel, and it's a historic district because of the fact that what's important is the unified theme and layout of the properties, and the individual properties all either contribute or don't contribute. I believe also that when we got the historic report for Matilaha Junior High, the historian analyzed that as a historic district. So I know that historic districts usually apply to not only multiple owners and multiple parcels, but also just to a situation like this where you have more of an overall design of a motor court, and the properties themselves, by the very discussion in the various historic reports, aren't really historically valuable in themselves, but how they contribute to the unified theme of the area, the layout, the spatial relationships, the presence of these contributing elements like the courtyard that are now, they're not even in the report as a contributing factor.
Hannah, I'm not sure if you're still there.
I am. I'm not sure I heard a specific question in there, but I
Okay.
can.
Thank you.
Okay.
I will note just one thing. It is a bit unusual to have a historic district for a single parcel. Even your code contemplates a landmark property. You can have landmark structures as well, but it does contemplate a landmark property. And the landmark property would be the landmark parcel. In this case, I believe what we're designating as the landmark property. Just one point of clarification.
Well, I just don't want it to be lost that some of these things that are going to disappear with their project, and they're welcome to do it, but are elements that are important, because I think that for almost 100 years, what defined that motor court was the central area that was open space and that was recreation area, that had a pool, that had a shuffleboard court, that had an area for people to play games and sit out on the grass. And now that's all going to be filled in. And I just wonder, to the architectural historian, if she doesn't think that reduces the integrity of the property as a whole.
I can respond to that. Yes. We do recognize that there, is a certain level of change that does affect those spatial relationships, and that is acknowledged in our standards analysis and the project analysis. But and at the end, considering the project as an overall whole, we still felt that there is sufficient integrity with the remaining buildings and other features, including the arrangement along the kind of semicircular drive, and the relationship of the buildings to each other and to that driveway, that there's still enough integrity there to have this be to still convey its significance and be a landmark. And I think that's consistent with the prior CEQA findings, which even when the project was demolishing, I think about half of the cottages found that there would still be enough to qualify as a local landmark, the remaining features. So I think in this case, this is a much better outcome here with all of the cottages remaining and more of the landscape features.
Well, I just want to call your attention to, on page 30 of 99, the map that you've drawn with your boundaries for the historic district. And there's a big carve out right there as you drive in. What always struck you about the place is you drive in and there'd be the courtyard, the pool, the big open space, and then there would be these cottages that are surrounding the courtyard, where people could come out and share that common area like a commons. And in the drawing that we see, we have that whole central courtyard carved out of the historic area. And so I'm just wondering why, wouldn't it be better to not have those there and preserve that courtyard and have that as part of the historic? I'm just wondering if, we always say that the integrity of a building is whether someone who lived during the time that the building had its period of significance, if they were to come back, would they recognize it? And would they experience it in the same way? Like when somebody walks downtown Ojai and they see the theater, they see the post office tower, they see the pergola and the arcade, they're having the same experience as someone that walked down that street in 1920. It's the same experience, it's the same buildings, it's all laid out in the same way. But I just think if someone came in here that they would not experience, because there's so many buildings there, that it really detracts from the historic character of the buildings. And I think the historic buildings even get sandwiched in there. So you can see on the west side, there's new buildings in front of the historic buildings and behind them and to the side of them. So they're really kind of separated and closed off. And you have all those buildings in the central courtyard that I think the spatial relationships, the visual impact of it, and just the historic character of it being a motor court when now there's no more court, is going to really seriously impact it. So that basically is my comment.
Let me go ahead real quick. In talking about the new buildings that are coming in the first tour that I took with Mr. Becker there, he showed me the plans they had, the buildings they had, the talked about the effort they had made in order to get single-story buildings that would fit into this parcel without being a distraction from the historic buildings that are there. We haven't talked about the buildings at all, those additional buildings that are going to go in. And, I was just in Planning Commission, someone was putting an additional building on their property that was historic, and, that's part of it, is does it take away from it? The effort they did, having sat through those 12 hours of hearings, was the fact that what could they do to develop that property, yet maintain that property for not only its historic nature, but also for the residents who lived there and would have a hard time finding someplace else. And so when you're, if we had didn't have a need for those extra buildings. I could see leaving the courtyard open, but we do have a need for those extra buildings, as that was part of the negotiations that took place over those 12 hours. And I'm guessing part of the agreement on making that it take place. But again, so I saw designs on the building. I know the efforts they went to go out and visit the manufacturers that are doing these buildings, how they went from going from a second story. I mean, I remember the neighbors on it talking about, well, they're going to put in these 2-story buildings and they're going to be looking in my backyard. Well, they're not putting in 2-story buildings now. Again, not to take away from so as not to take away from the historic nature of that property and of the buildings that are there. So I just was, interested in whether there should be any kind of discussion talking about those additional buildings that are coming in. I haven't heard them discussed in this meeting so far.
Is that a question for Hannah, or is this are we?
Well, Hannah's the one that would talk about their fit under the circumstances into the historic property that is. And I'm sure that was something that, Hannah, that you looked at when you were trying to get everything cited as they are proposed.
Sure, I can talk a little bit about the compatibility of the scale and design of them, and then maybe Jeff could weigh in on some of the considerations about how they were placed, because I know there's a lot of different competing considerations, including historic preservation, fire, life safety, topography, and also the number of units that were desired, as well as the desire to keep it 1 story as opposed to 2 stories. So maybe he could talk a little bit about those considerations. But I think from our perspective, in terms of the scale and design of them, we felt that they were appropriate because they are 1 story. They're not the exact same dimensions as the existing cottages, but they're a similar proportion, rectangular, not much larger than the existing cottages. They have a simple gabled form, so it kind of corresponds with the existing cottages while still being clearly contemporary, but not kind of flashy or over decorated. And so we provided Maura listed a few of the recommendations we had. These are prefabricated units, so there's a few different color and cladding options that are available. So we had provided some recommendations about what would be most appropriate in terms of the color tone and cladding options to be compatible with the existing wood-clad cottages. So we think that overall the scale and kind of simple gable design is appropriate while they are, clearly contemporary.
And I think one thing needs to be clear for the public is that we're not here to decide what Mr. Becker can do or not do with his property. He can build it exactly as designed here. Our job is not to tell him what he can or can't do, but we have to wrestle with whether we feel that this rises to the level of a landmark. When you look at Ojai's landmarks, they're all wonderful, integrity, beautiful buildings that people just come and visit and they enjoy them because of how well taken care of and how much they look like they did when they were. That's the point of a historic building, is to look like it did in its historic era. And this isn't a building, it's a collection of buildings. And so would we want it to be a place if someone said, oh, there's a landmark here that's a 1940s motor court that's down here on Mallory Way, and they go there and they go, well, what is this? It looks like a housing development to me. They can't really feel that. So that's our job, is to decide whether it rises to a level with our other landmarks. I mean, we could make it a point of historic interest because that's really what it is. It's an area where it's lost a lot of its integrity, but you're still maintaining a certain part of it. But I'm just thinking in terms of the post office, in terms of the Lavender Inn in terms of all of our other landmarks and how they really portray the history of Ojai. I'm sorry, I think I stepped on your time.
No, you didn't at all, but I'd like to add to that, and I'm very much concerned because I worry that we're going about this the wrong way, and I worry that we are going against the intent of state law and setting a really terrible precedent. I think that what we need to do first is we need to look at the property existing as it is now and decide, okay, is that historic or is it not historic? If it's not historic, well then, we don't need to waste anybody's time anymore. If it is historic, then we can talk about the Mills Act and the proposed changes that are made to the project. So I would propose that we, when presentations are finished, that we make a vote on whether or not we identify this Mallory Way parcel as landmark number 20 and recommend to the council that they approve that or not. And then, actually, there's a corollary to that. If it is indeed if we do indeed recommend the landmark, that we go through the Mills Act process, and at that point, this evening, we can say, okay, does it rise to that that standard given the property if it isn't deemed historic?
See, I thought about that too, because I thought, well, what if 20 years ago when that first report was written, that this was landmarked at that time, and somebody bought it and landmarked it, and they made it look like a 1920s. They restored some stuff, and they repaired things, and they made it look like it did in 1950, with the pool and everything, and it really captured, this is the last motor court. We had several of them in Ojai, and this is what they look like. A class might study the evolution of that in school, and then they come there for a field trip, and they'd really experience that. So if we had done that, and then now someone came to us and said, oh, I want to drop 31 or 33 units in the middle of it, surrounding it, do you think that would be okay? I'm not sure that we would if it blocked the view of the buildings and it changed the look of it. So that's what I'm looking at, is I'm thinking of it as a historic building and not just trying to make the best of what remnants we'll have left of that after all is said and done.
So Gina, can we pursue that?
I'm not sure.
So I think, Commissioner, are you asking the chair to entertain a motion? Is that your request?
Yes, I am.
I don't even know if I haven't heard from everybody yet. Do other people have something they'd like to say on this property before we entertain a motion?
Well, something that I guess this wouldn't have, Gina and I just happened to listen to a CEQA thing this evening, or this morning.
There's a lot of us, Brian was there.
Okay, so what I'm thinking of was that an example they gave was Culver City Studios. And they had some bungalows that were from back in the 20s. And the Culver City Studios is a historic, it's a designated historic area. And the people there, they wanted to make a parking lot where the cottages are. And they allowed them to move them. And they moved them over to what's called Gone with the Wind or Terra, because it's built, and that's where they filmed Gone with the Wind. So they moved these cottages over there, and this was done with historical, people's approval, and they built their parking lot. So CEQA said, this is from the state of California, Historic Preservation, that they don't want to stand in the way of times changing, businesses changing. Things are a lot different now than they were in the 20s when they had those cottages. So that's how my mind is with this is that, you know, they have owned this land for a long time, and they're making concessions to put in these extra units. And I understand what you're saying about making it look like it did, but and it could. All they'd have to do is make 2-story units if you want that big center thing. So to me, that's the compromises, and I would like to see that happening. So I don't have a problem with this or the changes from the way it used to look in the 50s.
Yeah, one thing that when they brought up Culver Studios, it was also a mixture, because you would see they had the mansion, and then in front of it they had bungalows, and then off to the side were very modern structures that were, they named them the Glass Studios after a long time ago when they did filming in a different way. But it was talking about how important adaptive reuse is, and I thought about it, seeing the mixture of the cottages mixed with modern buildings, because it definitely was something that made me think of tonight when I was looking at it. I mean, I'm very for adaptive reuse as the future of preservation. I do wish that those 4 buildings could be somewhere else so you can maintain a courtyard or even a smaller circle of open space in there, so when you drove in, you felt like it was a motor court. But yeah, I see the position you're in, but that's why I always look to page 30 of 99 because of the red line and the cutout, because there does seem to be the property that has historic buildings and the property that was underdeveloped and never had historic buildings. And they seem to be almost 2 when you think about it as Mills Act, because Mills Acting, the left-hand side on this page where all of the historic structures were, versus the right side, Mills Act funds for an underdeveloped side of it that's never had a historic building on. Does seem a little bit like that we'd have to grapple with that, but that's kind of where my head is. Anyone else? Rick?
Yeah, I have a couple comments. Well, I realize that this project, you know, it's been very controversial in the community, and of course the Beckers had to go through a lot to get it where it is today, as did groups in Ojai. So a lot of this has been fought over and compromised over and so on and so forth. And I personally don't have a whole lot of argument with where it's gotten to. When I was studying the maps in here, reading through this report over the last few days, it took me a while to get what was going on with the project. And when I finally realized that there were buildings being put in what I find to be the beating heart of the whole thing, it is a little bit like the White House being this wonderful old historic building in Washington, D.C., and somebody decides to build a building back there in the Rose Garden. This is how it feels to me a little bit. And then, just to be clear, along the existing driveway, there's a plan to put 3 buildings covering up 3 of the old buildings that are now along that driveway. So in essence, I'm looking at this map right now. In essence, what I see are 7 buildings which are detracting from this beating heart center of this old project. And it's almost like everything else around it is kind of immaterial, like in a way, who knows that there's an old building way at the back because nobody will ever see it. It could be anything. But it's this center. It's like a common area. It's like a park. It's like this is the main defining feature of this property. And there's no argument with me about all the other things. It's just that right there. And to me, it makes it not be a landmark somehow.
Well,
I know that's insane, but it's like if the downtown was counting on Libby Park being part of the Ojai downtown, and that was filled with houses, then it's not Libby Park anymore. So that's where I'm coming from on it. Otherwise, great project.
Yeah, I was, there was a mention here of an Oprah movie, so I Googled it, found it on YouTube in its entirety, and it's very depressing. But it was filmed there, and When Women Didn't Have Wings, I think is what it was called, and it was, if a scout was looking for a motor court to film this movie, and they drove into that, they wouldn't have filmed it there because they wouldn't have felt that it was a motor court. I mean, that was evident to me, and it's mainly because of those four in the center, because that is that feeling that it's a circular thing, and it does have an open space in the middle.
Well, I really like a lot of the design. I think I don't have a problem with those new buildings back behind on the west side that are in the easement there, the former easement, because they're behind the historic buildings. But to me, just the ones in the middle and off to the left where the sitting area used to be, I think those really do detract from it. And I even turned to the Secretary of the Interior standards, which everything that is done to a historic building, whether it's through the Mills Act or through our own ordinance, says that they should follow the Secretary of the Interior standard. And number 1 says, a property shall be used for its historic purpose or be placed in a new use that requires minimal change to the defining characteristics of the building and its site and environment. And it is changing. It is changing. It's not going to be a motor court anymore. We all accept that. It's going to be a residence, a group of houses. So its new use is to be basically a housing development with some historic ones in there and some not historic. But it doesn't have minimal change to the environment and to the site of it. It has a major change to it because it adds these buildings, which to me, there's 2 stories in that neighborhood. There's the old Masonic Lodge is a 2-story building right across the street. There's 2-story buildings down on Kenyatta Street and other places nearby. So, and the agreement does say that they can build 2-story buildings to satisfy the agreement. So I'm just not quite sure. I mean, that's a trade-off. We all know it's a trade-off. But for me, what's losing in this trade-off is the historic character. And if you look at number 2, it says the historic character of a property should be retained and preserved. The removal of historic materials or alterations of features and spaces that characterize the property should be avoided. And I think that the spaces and the relationship of the buildings and the open space, I think all that's being changed. And I think the historic standards said to avoid that and to not take the grounds of it and just treat it like they don't matter. They do matter. The setting of the buildings matters a great deal. And even number 9 says that the new construction shall be differentiated from the old, and they do that, and shall be compatible with the massing, size, scale, and architectural features of the historic buildings. Now, I know if you just look at each individual building, they do a pretty good job of matching up there. But when you think of the massing, the total massing of this new building that's going to go on the property, I think you have to consider that too, that here you have this area that has these 25 buildings, and sure, add some, but to add more than are there originally, I think that may be a little excessive, and particularly if it's being added right in the middle of the complex. If it could all be put somehow with 2 stories or whatever over on the vacant land off to the south, then you don't interfere with the historic motor court. So I think just in terms of the standards that we're supposed to be following and are even more stringently adhered to with the building, the Mills Act. I think we should really pay attention to that.
Can I add just a little comment to that? Just to, because I'm so familiar with this area, walking through there every day for 35 years. With Craig having this idea about putting some of the two-story buildings in, I mean, some of those could be spread out. Like, for example, the two houses that were discussed by a member of the audience that are kind of back in the trees, and those are back in the trees. I mean, if those two, as an example, were made into 2 stories, the impact of that's pretty low because there's a lot of foliage back there, and maybe some of that's being removed, I don't know. But also sort of putting it at the edges has a different perspective feel because it's a bigger element way at the back, just like way at the north side of the complex. There's condos back there, so those are already high. So maybe that's a way to do it. I don't know.
Commissioners,
It's not my job.
I just want to make sure we're focused on the historical perspective of this, because if we will have a design review process at the Planning Commission, and I'm afraid some of the comments are leaning a little bit toward design review and our development standards. So if you could, I'd recommend just limiting your points to the historic features of the property.
Okay, well, I'm done with my comments. Thank you.
Historic features, and also though, the request tonight is for comments to the Planning Commission on the site. So, however, I do agree
Right.
that it's getting a little
Chair,
too much in design
So
right now.
could the, could we say something, once everybody gets done talking? Let's say it got to be the point where if those 4 buildings in the center were relocated, our suggestions to planning, then at that point, we feel like it could be landmarked in Mills Act. Right? But that landmark in Mills Act wouldn't happen tonight because we'd want planning to weigh in on, because we feel that losing that center loses the feel of the historic landmark. I don't know if that's how it's going to vote, but I'm saying it.
Right.
I'm hearing that, so.
Yeah, I was gonna recommend the following after actually listening to the conversation. The first is to make sure that we just break this conversation up into its 3 components. So the first is this project worthy of landmark designation? Then you talk about the Mills Act, and then you would provide comments to the Planning Commission on design.
May I interject in that we have a 4th one? Is it worthy of historic landmark designation now, as it is?
Well, so that was the first, that is the
As
first.
it is.
Right, that's the first thing to be considered. And if you can't make that conclusion now, if you can't because you need to determine, you want to see what happens, you can always continue, and you don't have to make that
Like
designation.
for myself, I'm all for it being landmarked if I feel that it satisfies what a landmark should be. And right now, I don't feel it's there, but I could easily be persuaded to recommend it if there were these changes to move some of the, is that what you mean?
No, I mean, like right now, without any changes, the way if you walk there right now, without this plan in process, would it be worthy of being landmarked, as it is?
If we were to do that, knowing that there's going to be construction there, then we would have, and then we disagreed on whether or not it was a landmark, then it would be landmark number 20, then not, it would.
Well, we would agree that it's landmark number 20, or as a group, we would vote. If the majority agreed that it would be worthy of being landmark number 20, then we would you would sign the paper, and then that would be sent to the city council. And then we could discuss the project, assuming that that we did agree that it was historic. Then we could discuss the project. Okay, does this make sense as a Mills Act, yes or no, given Mr. Becker's ideas? And if not, what could be done, what could we suggest that would allow him to attain that if that's what he wants to do?
But even if it were landmarked as it is, there would have to be some changes in terms of what's called out, for example, as a defining feature of it, because some of the things I think define it as a historic landmark aren't mentioned in
Sure,
the
then we would mention it.
character defining features.
Then we would mention those character defining features now.
I can't agree that this is landmarkable at this time because I too grew up here. I too drove by this a lot. And I went back after we had a wonderful visit with you. I appreciate what you're doing here, truly appreciate it. I want to keep this valley as few buildings as we can, and you're doing that with the city, trying to give them what they need. But when I went back and sat outside the driveway and looked in there and took this in my mind with these buildings in the middle, I said to myself, this is no longer a motor court. This is no longer what I remember. If I came here, if I took my kids there and said, oh, or my grandkids, this is a motor court, they'd say, you're crazy. This is no motor court. And that's how I feel. And I'm torn, very torn, because I don't want to see a lot of density, and this is a great way to use the property. But I too feel that you can't call this landmarkable, taking the red line with how it's been pulled out. That's my opinion. I think there's maybe ways to fix it. I don't know where you all are in your process of, if we don't landmark it, what happens? I mean, are you all willing to work in trying to move some of these things around?
Well, I think that they're obligated to do the project under the agreement.
The way it is.
And this landmarking doesn't affect the agreement. Whether we landmark it or not does not affect the
So
agreement.
why are we here?
Because he wants the tax break.
So if you don't get the tax, no, I don't know. If you don't get the
So-
tax break, we don't do this?
So we're actually here to attempt to preserve Mallory Way cottages or bungalows. And the settlement agreement and the landmarking and the Mills Act and the attempts that have been made and the design here is an attempt to preserve.
But what are you preserving?
Well, you're
What are you preserving?
So, and what your job to do tonight is to review what's before you, which is a proposed or request for a landmark designation and Mills Act, and your job tonight is to make a recommendation to the city council. And so you see what you see, and you talk about it, and you ask questions, and then you make your recommendation on what is before you.
Okay.
And then you're also here to comment, and staff will be forwarding your comments regarding the site as you see here in your packet, and those comments will go to the Planning Commission. So there's a lot of comments that are coming out tonight. And so if you get together with solidify and take a vote on specific comments, then they will go forward to the Planning Commission. And again, the recommendation, solidify it, vote on it, will go to the City Council.
And I'll add one other thing. As Commissioner Walker pointed out, the project is moving forward whether or not there's a historic designation. The historic designation portion is only about, do you want to preserve the elements of the project that are proposed and enter into a Mills Act contract with the applicant to make sure that any restoration or rehabilitation of that site is going to be made pursuant to the Secretary of Interior standards, or not, because you don't find that it has historic properties.
But he's also obligated to renovate or to rehabilitate the buildings, the existing buildings as they are historic. Those are written into the contract. So what we do here won't mean that he'll all of a sudden make them different, those 25. They'll still be the same way that they're described here, right? Because that's written into the contract.
That's correct. So the settlement agreement,
Huh?
the settlement agreement,
Yes.
yes, does require that, separate from,
So what we
recommend-
decide here won't change how the project looks at all. It isn't like if we say no, he's gonna build the buildings some different way and tear them down or something like that, because it's in the agreement that he'll do the buildings.
Yeah, it doesn't exactly say it that way, but it does limit it to like square footage and size and et cetera. So there are limitations, but yes,
It says
more basic point.
rehabilitate, it says to restore the original.
your more basic point is correct, which is this is the project as proposed. This project as proposed is going to go to the planning commission.
Right.
The question before
I'm
you
just
is,
trying to get it clear for us that
right.
we're not, if we don't landmark it, somehow he's gonna tear those buildings down, or
That-
he's gonna,
That's not how. He submitted
that's
his
not the way it's
application.
written in the settlement agreement.
Right, he submitted his application for, and I believe the design review portion is going to go to the planning commission based on this design. So.
Okay, so I have a couple questions.
Insight.
I think when you read this, it says sometimes a historic district, and other times it's called a property. And sometimes they talk about the houses being landmarked, and other times they talk about it being a motor court. I think if we can get on the same page as what we are looking at, are we going to call it a district, or are we going to call it a property? So we learned.
it's a property.
It's a property,
And
not
it's
a district.
landmarking, the
Okay,
request is to
so-
landmark the property in Mills Act,
Okay,
the
so
property.
no more district talk. And then on this, is it, are we talking about landmarking the 19 buildings and the other features mentioned, or are we talking about landmarking a motor court? Because if, we have to get that.
I think what I'm trying to propose, which I think will give us the most flexibility in the future, is to landmark the entire property as it is today, not with any of the proposed changes.
But there is changes coming, so.
Well, then we can look at those and see, well, do they make sense or not?
Okay,
That's my
but
idea.
that's.
Chair, you'll be landmarking the property based on the structures that exist, and you can take into account what's been proposed as well. You can take that into account, but you're basing your landmark designation off what exists.
On 19 structures and the wishing well and the semicircle driveway,
Right.
not necessarily thinking of it as a motor court. We're thinking of it as 19 structures with these motor court features that still exist.
I leave that to you. Yeah.
Okay, but that's,
But what does that do to him? Because if we landmark it as is, then he's kind of limited now to what he can do with that property.
You're landmarking the project as proposed.
yes.
Oh, as
So it's the-
proposed.
Right,
Oh,
so it's the property.
okay.
So it's the property, but
I
you're
don't
basing
think
your,
that's what,
but you're basing your landmark designation on the character defining features that currently are on the site.
yeah.
I wanted to
So-
not do that, but to make a motion to landmark it as it is now.
Right, because I think the way you're proposing it, Commissioner, is you'd essentially be freezing what exists on the site as of today, and then if they want to build something further, then they'd have to come before the Historic Preservation Commission and probably have to get another permit.
That's right.
Oh, that is what you're proposing?
Yes.
He won't want-
That's not what we have in the staff report. What we have in the staff report is the project.
Yeah, I don't think he would want that.
No, we don't.
I'm not saying that I certainly would absolutely agree that there are changes that can be made and buildings added to the property. I just, I'm not, that's not what I'm saying.
Randy, did you go to the CEQA
No.
study? Okay. If you can watch it, I think you'd really find it.
Chair, could I
Well,
step
Well,
in
maybe we
here?
could vote on whether we want to approve it as it's written. And if the vote is no, then we can give the recommendation to the planning commission that they make certain adjustments and send it back to us.
That's a great idea.
So we could we could do that, and then if they can make those adjustments, then they could send it back to us.
Yes, that could work.
I know your dream list, Craig, but what's the minimum that you think that you would like to see go to planning with what would be your recommendations to planning? Craig?
What, I'm sorry, Brian was in the way.
Sorry, what?
That's because he's waiting to talk.
What is your recommendations to planning? Not like a fantasy list, but like in order for you to have planning look at recommendations and come back, what are you
Well,
talking
if it
about?
was just my suggestion would be for them to find a way to find a different way to accommodate those 9, I mean, I count 9 that are really interfering with them, but as many of the 9 as they can, and then they can send it back to us and we can decide at that time if that's enough.
Okay, so any other voices that aren't comfortable with it, how it is currently? How would you see it going? What would your suggestions to planning be? Does anyone else have any suggestions to planning?
May I just add that if we did eliminate those 9, that you could also keep the shuffleboard court as it is.
It hasn't been, yeah. Okay, and then,
So Chair, can I jump in here, please?
yes, please.
So again, hopefully we're not going to take another 12 hours to get to an agreement like we did the last time. So to my understanding, my sense is of these things, of this process, it was to balance out what it's going to cost to to reset essentially the part that we consider historic, which is got serious issues. They talked about it, plumbing, electrical, all kinds of different things that they're planning to go in and do now in refurbishing or, it. But those things cost money and they're not going to get that out of the rent because are these low income as well?
No, there's a requirement in the settlement agreement that there be a percentage of low income in this development.
Correct.
5 deed restricted low income units and 5 deed restricted moderate income units.
Okay, so
The existing structures
No,
aren't,
let me-
I'm
Go
sorry, I
ahead.
just wanted to confirm, let you know also that the existing structures are not to be worked on the inside, only the outside while the existing residents are there.
Understood. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and when those residents leave, for whatever reason they leave, then they would go in and make those changes. Absolutely correct. So you just told me that of the properties that are there, 5 are low income and 5 are medium, that there are restrictions on these properties on what they can charge.
In the development, the full development that's in front of you, yes.
Yes.
Not the current ones, and the,
No, I'm thinking the
and
current
the property
buildings that
owners
exist now.
said that there's a couple of projects in front of this one, so this isn't gonna happen for like, you said a few years, right?
Brian,
Yes.
in the project as a whole, there's a requirement for some low-income units, not the existing, that are existing on the land today. It's this project that's before you of 58 units.
Proposed 58 units, right?
Okay. So
So there isn't a requirement to have low income on this property at all?
There is the proposed 58 units has a requirement for a percentage to be low income. The existing property does not have a requirement to have any low income.
Okay, so again, in penciling out what it's going to cost to do this, if they could do it, I'm sure with 4 less parcel or buildings, 9 less parcels, and make it break even or make it function or
Well-
financially then they may be. My understanding is that they're trying to get what they can in there so that it's workable, and we're kind of looking at this like, well, yeah, we're just going to look at it from a historic standpoint. That if you look at that parcel in the middle, it has a couple trees that have come down since the first, and now other than that, they have very tall trees there. It is negligible on its use. I guess, yes, it's a visual thing of a motor court when you come in there, but it's not paying anybody anything in trying to
Can-
pencil this out.
Then what are you landmarking?
What am I landmarking? All the places.
Only the buildings?
How-
That's not how this is set up, I don't think. I think it's the whole parcel we're landmarking,
Right.
I-
not just the buildings.
Can I
I'm-
ask the, can I ask Mr.
Can I,
Becker a
can I just
question?
finish?
Gina?
Sure.
Again, it is to keep these things from falling down into the ground.
Right.
That's what we're doing, okay? And in order to do that, again, through 12 hours, 3-4 hour meetings, this is what they came up with as an agreement.
Okay,
Can I ask a question? Is it possible, I don't know, but if we're going to be making recommendations to the planning commission, that they could do some kind of a credit on a few of these units, that they can use that credit on a different project?
Your
Somewhere is-
comments to the planning commission are on on this site design. Your comments to the planning commission are on this site plan. And the design review permit, it's not about their financial, you're
No. I mean,
commenting on the site.
We're talking about, one of our recommendations is going to be trying to find a different location.
You're not redesigning the project, you're making some comments to the planning commission. So if your comments, for instance, from what I've heard, are to leave without development the center area, the center courtyard, that's currently a courtyard, or to not block the existing structures there on the west, I guess that's the west side with those 4 buildings.
Right.
So I think you might be stepping a little far
little over the
by
edge.
talking about giving them credits to some other development. I just don't think that that's in your
Okay.
realm.
Could-
Yeah.
Well, Commissioner Akins just said that these units were going to be eliminated. And I'd like to point out that some of us are saying not eliminate them, move them. That's what we're saying. That this needs to be clear to everybody.
can I
And
ask
we're
a
not
question?
going to have a motor
It's
court.
an important,
Well,
it's
I
an
wasn't-
important point.
Right.
Right, and I was just giving that as an example of have that clear. And you've also, I've heard comments, because they're giving comments to the planning commission. I've heard, and of course you'd have to vote on it, but I've heard a desire or as a compromise for 2-story structures in order to accommodate 58 units. So these are all your comments. So it's not like have fewer than 58 units, it's just, hey, maybe, anyway, I didn't want you to think that.
Well, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Can we wait? I
Thank
just
you.
have
You're not finished yet with all of your deliberation.
So can I ask Mr. Becker a question?
Please.
So when I did my tour, we talked about how open space was going to be really important to kind of keep that feel. And you talked about how the pool's been filled in for years and how the shuffleboard hasn't been used since you've owned it. But you were talking about adding a bocce ball court and having open space for people to gather, like tables, chairs, and I'm assuming like a barbecue, something like that area. When we we're talking about feeling, that is something that is important. Where were you thinking about having that go? If I'm looking at
So
this.
that's on, it's actually on the plan. I'll kind of show you on this larger.
I'm sorry, Jeff, you can stay there and I'll bring the plan to you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. By the way, we're only halfway through our normal 4-hour meeting time, so we're got plenty of time.
Yes.
So the bocce ball court is right here in this area. And
Okay.
this section here, which is, it's in that center zone. There are units around it, but that's the seating area at
Okay.
present. That's the landscape
Here are the
design.
table and chairs.
So the table and chairs and the bocce stays in that
Kind of in that
center.
middle zone that we were around where the wishing well
Right.
was.
So you're still maintaining the motor court feeling with that area as far as that being your open space. for
We're
people
trying to.
to
Yeah,
gather.
it's a tough, I mean, we take all the comments to heart. It's a tough call. We have a certain number of units in our settlement agreement. We are trying to stay with single story instead of the two-story. This is not the only design we've done, just so
Sure
you
it's
guys know. And, you know, the two-story concept, even though there are some two stories in the area, obviously, but we would need to be putting those up against the property areas, and we've got lots of trees. We've got the creek to contend with, so we were trying to stay with the one-story concept and still make it all work. And so, and then when you overlay new code requirements, our fire department is a big issue with access and width. You know, all of our drives in there now, they don't meet current code, nowhere near it. So we've got all those things to contend with. So you start, you know, trying to make this thing fit. And it's a tough one. I mean, we certainly could go two stories in some areas, but we're gonna give up other things because of that if we went that route. So it is a trade-off. So, you know, we certainly appreciate your comments, and ultimately whatever you decide and vote on, if you make your comments related to the project, we'll take a look at those. But we've been at this for now over a year trying to come up with different designs. And this is kind of what we feel is the best to date.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Can I make a motion?
Can try.
Randy wanted to make a motion.
Okay. Well, I would like to move that we, I don't know what the word would be, but that we not approve this particular project, and that we send our recommendations or their comments to the Planning Commission, and then see what they come up with, and then have them send it back to us for a recommendation to the council. Does that work?
So, to be clear, the Planning Commission is going to consider the design review permit. They're not going to be considering the historic landmark designation, right?
No.
That's correct.
So,
I'm sorry, it would just be whether they can accommodate this
Right.
open space that we'd like to.
so to the extent the Planning Commission decides to, or works with the developer to make modifications to the project, then I guess there would be grounds for it to come back to the Historic Preservation Commission. But if the Planning Commission grants the design review permit without any modifications, then it wouldn't make sense to come back to the Historic Preservation Commission. It'd probably just go straight to the City Council after that for whatever subsequent approvals are necessary. So you can make the motion, Commissioner, that's fine, and you can provide your thoughts, and then the Planning Commission can consider them, and whether the project changes or not, that'll be up to the Planning Commission.
And then the recommendation regarding the landmarking and Mills Act, which so far is to not move forward with it, or to
Our
not
recommendation
grant
is
it
not to
Right.
move this forward
for landmarking, so as is.
as is.
Right, so that would go to the city council, and then, they will be taking that into consideration, and then they will be deciding whether or not to grant a landmarking and Mills Act.
Can I elaborate, Craig, on on what I think will be your motion?
Yeah.
I'd like to add that we urge the Planning Commission to make to listen and to act on our recommendations, because the way the plan is now, it'll destroy the first paragraph of the summary of significance of the Page and Turnbull report. I'll quickly read. The former Valley Outpost Lodge at 412 Mallory Way is an eligible historic district that is significant as a representative example of post-World War I automobile tourism in Ojai, and as a distinctive and rare extent local example of a motor court. Mm-hmm. And that we urge the Planning Commission to work with the developer to create a design that eliminates those 8 properties that destroy the feeling of the motor court, move them to find another solution. That's what I suggest.
That's the way I feel about it.
So if I could ask, in the motion, just to be more specific about the recommendations, or no, comments to Planning Commission, and so, and it's, I think, what I'm hearing is that it would be the 4 structures that are in the center, and then there are 4 structures to the west that are blocking from the, yeah, okay.
There's
so I
5 really, but
And where's the 5th? Is it the first one coming in from Mallory Way?
Because I think you did say, Craig, I think you did say 9.
Yeah.
So I know, okay, I know which one you're talking about. So, okay, so what you're, I just wanted to make sure that staff has the comments to Planning Commission clear, okay? And so what you're asking, what you're commenting on is those 9 units and how they're taking away, or the comment is that you'd like those to be moved.
yes, that we
And-
find
and
that
that you're-
it detracts from the integrity of the
Okay.
motor court.
And
And what he said, because I thought he expressed it.
you didn't say this, but I heard it previously. And so you're supportive potentially of 2-story structures in order to,
Possibly supportive. It depends on where they are. It depends.
Yeah,
I want you to make sure that your comments are clear.
okay, so what,
So, the settlement agreement allows them to build up to 58 units
Yes.
total, not have 58 units total in the end. And so, residential units, and they have that now. So you're recommending now, or, commenting on nine units. And they can have those 9 units, like pursuant to the settlement
That's right.
agreement. Right, so I just want to make sure we have it all clear, so there's no misunderstanding when we go to Planning Commission,
that's right.
okay? So, do you want me to read something back to you, or do you want to start over again to make it real clear before there's a vote?
Can I?
Because there's a lot of words there, and I don't know that the words of because it's going to take away from the integrity, this and that. I think it's what is the recommendation, and be as clear and concise and with as few words as possible.
The recommendation is that they work with the applicant to find a way to design the property that includes the 58, if that's what it has to be. It says up to 58, so I don't know. But leaving that space available for the historic property, the central courtyard and the sitting area, the central part.
Okay, and I am very clear on which 9 units they are, so we'll make sure that's included.
Which ones those are?
Yes, I am sure, I am aware of which ones they are, so I
Okay,
just want you to know that,
okay.
okay. Actually, I can't really read it back. What I was going to do is listen to them. Well, first of all, there has to be a vote, so we don't even know if that's going
Yeah,
forward.
we need to have a second.
Or it has to be a second and then a vote. But what I was going to do is go back to the minutes or the video when I write this up. So if, what I heard though is the motion is to make comments to the Planning Commission to relocate or remove the 9 units that are within the central area of the courtyard.
Right.
And I think when writing it in a staff report to the Planning Commission, there will be more words, but that's basically what you're saying.
Okay.
And it is to preserve the integrity of the motor lodge feel, open space.
And I would be more specific, and I would quote the first 3 lines of the summary of significance on page 28 of 99. And that's what we want to preserve, because we agree.
28 of 99, first paragraph of summary of significance.
The top
Thank you, I
first-
got it. I just wanted to circle it and make sure that you want to preserve that. Okay, thank you.
I have a question, please, for you.
From me, yes.
For our attorney.
Oh.
Just so I'm perfectly clear about how all this is working. It doesn't really matter what happens here. It goes to the planning commission. This drawing, this as it is today, and they will then decide. Then it goes to the city council. And the city council can override anything that we do here, right? They can say, well, we don't agree with you, we're gonna landmark this anyway.
Correct.
Can they give it a Mills Act too?
Right.
They can do that.
After they designated a landmark, yes, they can
So
grant the
we have no
Mills Act.
say in, if we were to split these apart and say, okay, landmark it, but let's hold off on Mills Acting it.
Yours is only a recommendation.
Okay. All right.
Mhm. I think you need a second on the motion.
Well, can I make a friendly amendment first?
Yep. You
So,
can. Oh, sorry. I'm thinking Rosenberg's Rules of Order. So if there's a motion, we need to figure out if there's a second, and if it doesn't have a second,
Then
then
don't
it
need to
dies,
worry about
and then we can entertain a next motion.
Okay, I second it.
So, okay, there's a second. We have a friendly amendment.
Yes, so what we've, I understand what we've stipulated. We seem to indicate that the problem is the 9 buildings that are there in the center and on, from here, the downside of the sheet. And so my friendly amendment would be if, in fact, that was accepted by the by the builder, if it went through, would this commission then be favorable for landmarking the property? Because what I want to do is I want to say, okay, this is our position and we're going to hold to it. Again, I sat through 12 hours of things going back and forth and walking away and wondering if we made any sense. So I'm just trying to, so if we're going to say we'd like you to remove those 9 or those 4. And if you do that, then we would be favorable in landmarking the rest, the part that we're talking about being a possible landmark.
As a policy matter, it can't happen because you can't vote today to bind yourself in the future unless it's like through a contract or something. On policy legislative issues like this, you can't say, if you do that, then we will do this in the future. It can't happen because you have the entire body here. So it'll have to be a future vote.
Okay.
But we're open to relooking at it and coming, if the developer wants to bring, comes to some sort of plan that opens up the feel of the motor lodge, and we're happy with that, then I would totally be open to.
And I do think that we all have different ideas, like Craig sees 9, Brian may see 4. I mean, I would even consider the 2,
Well, the motion was for 9.
Right, but
But
that,
you-
So, and it was seconded, and so I think it's time for a vote.
okay.
Can I just ask, is it implied in the vote that if they do find a solution for those 9 buildings, that area would be preserved as a courtyard and not like turned into a parking lot or something like that? I mean, is it implied that we're wanting it to stay as it is, as what it is now, and not be just fair game for some other development?
You've said it, and the planning commission will hear it.
What's that?
I said you've said it, and the planning commission will hear it.
Okay.
So one last question. So going forward then, if we go forward with the motion and with the second, and depending on that vote, if it's a no vote on going forward, does that basically say we've pretty much determined that it will never be landmarked?
You've determined that as designed today, it will not be landmarked, and that if there's a future redesign, it can always come before this body for consideration again.
So,
The council can do it if they want, right?
Well,
Right.
yeah, the council can do whatever they want, but
Right.
Or
Um,
if the
no,
motion
I'm talking about,
fails.
So you're saying then that options to address our concerns could be generated at the way where it could then come back to the HPC to be landmarked. So
Yeah.
we're not precluding ourselves from landmarking what I consider a very important, as I said, the last remaining motor court in the city of Ojai. And as we learned today in talking about the CEQA, if you walk in and it looks historic to you, a train died, then it's probably historic.
You're right. Correct. You're not precluding yourself from designating it at some future date.
Okay,
You're right.
thank you.
But we're also not guaranteeing it. Like you said, we can't put ourselves in it. It might come back to us or it might not.
Right.
Okay.
You are a recommending body.
Okay,
So
so
you
we
can
have
take
a
a-
first and a second. Do you want to do a roll call?
Ida, roll call?
McHatton,
No.
Sims,
No.
Akins,
No.
Basasha,
No.
Walker,
Yes.
Moore,
No.
Levitt.
Yes.
So your motion fails. So is there another motion that the commission would like to entertain?
Anybody else want to take a stab at it?
You try.
Okay.
I would like to make a motion that we accept the city's recommendation and approve this to be landmarked.
I'll second that.
May I make a friendly amendment on that?
Yep.
With that, can we highly suggest that you would consider more open space in the center to have it have some sort of a feel of a motor court? Can we,
You're recommending on the project as is.
right, but I'm just saying, can we also just,
That would be a
You know,
comment to the
No.
planning commission.
no?
I tried to do that.
So that, it sounds to me like that would be a recommendation to Landmark and Mills Act to the city council and a comment to the planning commission
In the design review process.
in the design review process, because that's what they're making a comment to the planning commission to redesign to open up that courtyard.
Okay,
So I need to ask Laura.
do we have a second?
Well, I have a question here. This is just for a landmark, not a mills.
Correct.
Is
We're-
that correct?
We're-
Yes.
No,
I'm sorry.
the first
Okay.
vote is just landmark
Right,
designation.
good, thank you.
Okay, so actually, so those comments, what I just said to the chair, those would be comments when we do a third thing. Right now, it's recommendation for landmarking, then a recommendation for Mills Act, then comments to planning commission.
We're separating them out.
Yeah, all three things.
I'm sorry, can you read what are we what is the vote gonna be on? I don't.
So here, the vote right now, is a recommendation for landmarking to the city council.
But what in particular?
Oh, the site, the
The project as
the
proposed.
project site that is proposed, as proposed.
That's the current motion that's received a second. If there are no other substitute motions or amendments, then Chair, you can entertain the vote.
Can we get a roll call?
McHatton,
Yes.
Sims,
Yes.
Akins,
Yes.
Basasha,
No.
Walker,
No.
Moore,
Yes.
Levitt.
No.
Passes.
That passes. Okay, so the motion to recommend approval of the landmarking of this site as is it will go forward as a recommendation to landmark it. And so now there will be, if there's a motion to create a Mills Act agreement between the city and the property owner for the site as proposed. Sorry for the stuttering.
Can I ask a question about the Mills Act?
Yes.
Is that what we're talking about now?
Yes.
Is that, you saw the map that showed that the only historic part was in the red lines, so, who decides whether the what we're landmarking or what we're giving the Mills Act to is just the part within the red lines, just the historic buildings, or the whole thing?
Mills Act is for the site.
Huh?
The Mills Act is for the site, the whole site,
The whole site.
yes, as is the landmarking.
And enforcement.
So
of the-
we would have to landmark, we would have to give a tax break not only to all the 33 new properties, but also that would cover work on the interiors of the buildings, even though they're not going to be historically renovated. We have to use the public's funds to fund all of that work, or just, I thought it was just for restoration and rehabilitation of historic properties, not non-historic.
So because it's a single parcel, right, they're only paying taxes for that single parcel. It includes obviously the improvements on that parcel. The money that they save has to be used, like you said, for rehabilitation of the existing sites. And they're gonna exhaust that fund just rehabilitating the existing sites.
So they wouldn't be able to use the money for
For a new build, no.
for the new buildings or for other kinds of site improvements. But I just wonder, because in their application, it's so general, it doesn't spell it out at all, or call out what it's gonna cover. So I just wonder how that's gonna be monitored, yeah.
If you'd like, Commissioner, if you're in support of this Mills Act contract, you can add a condition that it be approved subject to the addition of a condition where it says that the funds will only be used for the purposes of rehabilitation of the existing structures. You can add something like that in your motion if you'd like.
As a Mills Act property owner, I can tell you that the funds that you're talking about is an annual new
Tax break.
tax break. You can't tell somebody, oh, you can't say, okay, I'm saving this much, I'm gonna use it for this, I'm not gonna use it for that. It's like all the money's commingled anyway.
The money is commingled, but this is how we tell. Because in a Mills Act contract, we figure out, okay, what does it cost the person to rehabilitate these sites, right? And then once we figure out what that cost is, the tax break is going to be equal to or less than that total amount. So whether it's commingled or not, those funds practically are gonna be used for that purpose.
I mean, this development is destroying the main reason for the significance of the site. There's no reason to give the developer a tax break whatsoever.
So I have a question. I could have sworn in the time that I've been on here and given Mills Act in the past that we have given it to the historic structure on the property, but not the land or other buildings. Haven't we? Isn't there like a math problem? It's like 60% or 50%. I feel like we've done that.
I'm not really sure about that point, because I've never seen that, honestly. But generally, it's a property tax rebate. You pay less in property taxes. The portion that's going to go to the city is now going to go to the property owner.
Right, but I thought it. Do you remember anything like that?
So we had a parcel, quite a bit of land associated with that. When we sat down with the owner on that property, we were actually looking at what they were landmarking on that property. And so they chose to landmark all of the property instead of just the building. So the question then is, if they did end up getting a Mills Act, with that building, with the Mills Act, which say they only landmark the building, would they peel that out from the whole tax bill on the whole property?
I don't think so. I mean, I could look into it further, but that's not my understanding.
It's very complicated, and it has to do with what percent of land versus improvements. You can't.
I know we've done it. I know it. I know that Commissioner Convery was the one who commented and saying, make sure that you landmark
Right.
the whole thing instead of just the buildings, so you'll get the tax break for the whole thing.
And we made that recommendation. They said to do the whole property. We said that, but, None of us know how they calculate the Mills Act
So-
except maybe.
And so the Mills Act
Randy and
that's,
Laurel.
the Mills Act that's before you is for the entire site, and so your job is to make a recommendation.
Okay.
Could I make a comment?
Yes, please.
Okay, we've done a number of Mills Acts in Ventura.
Lots of Mills Acts.
The most recent one being the old Elks Lodge downtown Ventura, which is now Hotel San Buena. The whole property was designated historic, approved for a Mills Act, but you're not getting a check back from anybody, okay? And it is only used on the historic portion, the buildings, the structures, for maintenance and upgrades. So in that case, as an example, we rehabbed the hotel building, which was the old structure. And when you use the Mills Act, what you're benefiting from is not being reassessed when you're completed. So in other words, all the money you spend on the property to rehab, upgrade it, infrastructure, which in that case was millions of dollars, you're not exposed to a reassessment or an upgrade. So you do save that incremental increase. At the same time, we built a whole new building that's attached to it. They share a elevator, a parking structure, all that kind of good stuff. That's just assessed at market value. So that doesn't benefit. That's all the new stuff. So all the new units in whatever we end up with, that's not going to be benefited by the Mills Act. It's only the old structures and the improvements that you do to those. And the county comes out every year during your construction and they assess how much you've completed, what have you spent, all the documentation. It's extensive, the work that they do and what you have to provide them. I've been doing that. I've done it on, I think, 7 Mills Act properties. So we're not getting a check and going out and buying new units, for instance. So it's all about improving the old structures and what you spend on that. And then you have to document what you've spent. They're not reassessing you on some of those things that a permit would normally invoke a reassessment for.
So it's like when you have Proposition 13 and then you add to your house, they only reassess based on the new construction and not what's there already.
Yeah.
So in your case.
Although they've chewed away at that too, by the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. So like if you put a new roof on it, for instance, and you would normally be reassessed for like a new roof or some improvement, whatever. It could be as small as a water heater, frankly. That triggers, those permits trigger a reassessment inspection. And they do an inspection, but you're not reassessed for those improvements that you do to the
But now
old structures.
if you sell the property, then the new buyer gets the whole benefit of it, right?
Well, we've never sold any of ours, so I can't speak to whether they would reassess the whole site, but my assumption, knowing the tax assessor, is they get to take a look at it, although they would probably value it based on the underlying Mills Act number, whatever that might be.
I see. That's
Yeah.
all handled by the county.
Yeah, but I mean, I've heard even in Ventura, we've had properties, because the ones we've done have all been designated, and a lot of statements are made that are not actually true, like you're getting a check back or something from the tax assessor. So you're not really you're benefiting because of the incremental savings on property taxes into the future.
Yeah.
That's really what you're saving with the Mills Act. So, thank you.
Thank you.
So where are we? Are we voting? No,
I-
we voted.
Do we have any other questions on?
I don't think there was a motion on the Mills Act yet.
No.
No.
Oh, that's right.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the recommendation of the city to Mills Act this property.
Based on the recent information we just got, I second that.
Can we get a roll call vote?
McHatton,
No.
Sims,
Yes.
Akins,
Yes.
Bisasha,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Levitt.
No.
We done with this?
And so the recommendation for the city council to Mills Act this property goes forward, at 5 to 2. And then there's the third element this evening, which is comments to Planning Commission. And so once you have some real clear comments, I can read them back for you if you'd like, and then you can make a motion and a second and a vote.
Chair, I think me and respectfully, I think maybe the most useful way to go about this is if maybe each director could just take a turn providing a comment, because it's not really a motion item, because there's nothing to approve. So if each director wanted to take a turn providing their comments, and then we could probably close this agenda item out and move to the next.
Okay, I'll go first. So one of the reasons I voted no on the last item is because that was such a new bit of information to vote on so quickly. I felt like I needed to research and contact people who I've learned about Mills Act from, so I just felt more confident if I didn't vote yes on something that I just learned. I wanted to let it simmer, unfortunately, in this situation. Simmering doesn't have time for that sometimes. But it's not that I'm against they're getting a Mills Act, it's just I understood it differently. And so, anyway, my comments to planning would be that they look at what's mentioned throughout the report of it being the last motor court example in Ojai, and the reason why the buildings are, this collection of buildings is significant is because of the motor court. And if there's a way to relocate two to however many to allow for some sort of space where you have an open space in the center for the visual, the emotional feeling when you drive in and go, oh, that's a motor court. If they could consider relocating some of those buildings, ideally more, but at the minimum two, in my opinion. Next.
Was our original vote to have that area be open, the central area be open? Our original vote that we had. What did our original vote say about the center of the development?
There's been discussion about the center, yes, but we haven't come together concisely with comments to the Planning Commission.
But I would hate to put a number on it, because I'm sure we all have a different number. So I like the fact that we just said we would like to keep that open to keep the integrity of the property instead of coming up with numbers, because I say tomato, you say.
So let the developers and planning maybe just consider open space in the middle, and hopefully, since we've already landmarked it, we're hoping that they can figure out some way to keep that motor court feeling.
That would be my only comment also, if we could somehow keep that open area.
And to keep it looking historic. So that would mean having what was there going back 100 years or almost, having it be a recreation, open space, sitting area, common area, instead of being filled with new buildings.
I agree, to do the best you can to try to make that a more open area so that it does retain what it's supposed to be, a motor court, because that's what we're doing. That's all I'll say. Maybe it's two buildings or it's 7 buildings. I don't know what it is. I don't know how you figure out the money in all of it. So that's my opinion.
Rick?
Well, I feel the same as some of the other commissioners, as I stated in earlier comments about the middle and those side units being moved somewhere else, not eliminated, moved somewhere else. And just as a general thing, a general question, not expecting an answer, I don't understand why that wasn't considered as part of this. In all the original architectural meetings and design meetings. I'm a general contractor. It's something I would think about, and it would make sense to me, so I don't understand how that never came into this. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. It seems to me that we're finished with this item. And I suggest that we take a 3-minute break.
I just want to say thank you. Let's make this beautiful. So we're all wanting to come stay there in our motorhomes.
I don't think you can do that. Would everybody please turn off their mics?
Okay.
Well,
I feel so bad. I feel so strongly, obviously, about that as you did as well. It's like there's nothing that's going to incentivize him to do anything that we're saying
yeah.
without putting any teeth in it. And we don't, there were no teeth to begin with because we're just an advisory body, but I can't believe that people wouldn't vote for it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. It's like, you go to a town and they've got a historic motor place, and you go and it doesn't even look like one.
Well, but
You're fine.
he's making tens of millions of dollars from this development. And we're worried about saving him $1,000. Well, of course he wanted it.
Oh, right.
No, really,
Did you vote
seriously.
yes or no?
On the first one?
Yeah.
I didn't vote the way I wanted to.
Oh.
I was confused by the wording.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't understand.
Was it just Randy and I that voted?
Yeah.
For it? Really? Just,
I mean, it doesn't make any difference.
no, I know.
But,
I just,
I don't understand why it was a.
no.
So he has more incentive.
Well, I mean, it just means that you're gonna give them what they want.
Well, yeah, I get it. My last comment, why, how is it that we were never included in on this?
Well, you know, one of the things I was thinking that we should recommend to the council is that whenever you have anybody who owns a landmark or something like that that wants to change it, that they have to come to us for conceptual review first. You know, where we can talk to them about it and tell them what we expect,
Yeah,
instead of waiting
like
till
how
the
did it
end.
get here and not have that element included? It makes no sense to me. I mean, it's all about money.
Well, it's, yeah, they want the tax break. And
Well, no, it's, well, yeah, that, but they didn't see the beauty of the place. They
Right.
just saw dollars.
no, they don't care about it. Remember, they wanted to they wanted to demolish 19.
Right. Well, these are the people who wanted to demolish it. So.
I know. Oh, and the
Now
one,
they get credit for being heroes.
and then the lady comes and says, "You better have a monitor."
Brian, were you trying to say something to me?
Oh, were you in Mexico and that's why you didn't take the tour? I kept getting these.
Yeah, I was in
Well,
Mexico.
Rick's in Mexico.
Yeah, I was on
How
the
could that be?
beach.
He just called me and said in his package he just got, there were only 2 pages.
That wasn't me. No, but I'm familiar with the
Oh,
place.
yes. Oh, yeah.
I mean, I walked through there today, in fact. I would like to have gone there.
Yeah, we went and visited somebody in church and we went there and I'm like, oh, this must be the smaller one, as we met around their bed.
Oh, okay. That's funny.
You know, they weren't in it. It was just, you know,
Yeah, that's
that
good.
small. It was
Yeah,
a
I
small
know,
one.
they're little.
I'm pretty sure that Connie's great uncle and probably long time ago.
No,
I have no idea which one was Paul, or, Platz's, not Paul Platz's. In all the meetings, he kept talking about him living there.
Really?
Paul's son,
At one time?
at one time.
Oh, interesting.
Well, I just think of our list of landmarks, you know, and you go through it, and you go through each one. I went through each one of them, and how wonderful every single one of them is, and how true it is to the character of the building. And then this won't be like that. And it is a historic district. It really is. Thatcher School is a historic district.
I know, I saw that.
You know, and anytime they have like a campus where the buildings contribute to the overall effect.
I'm number 3.
Well, I wonder if, because of Gina's remarks, I wonder if she knew what she was voting for the first time.
I don't know. Yeah,
I mean,
I don't
that's
know.
what doesn't make sense to me.
But now why did you vote no again?
I voted no because I misunderstood what I was voting for.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, like no is yes and yes is no. You know, that kind of a vote.
So you didn't realize we were voting
Yeah.
to not accept it
Yeah,
and to
I
rather.
was confused. I would have voted,
Oh,
would have voted, I'm so confused. I
yeah.
mean, I can't even articulate it in recounting.
Well, you've been in Mexico. You probably drank too much of that
No,
Mexican
I
beer.
didn't drink anything. I ate a bunch of tacos though.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, maybe too many, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, God. Well, what time is it? We should get moving.
That clock's off. There's another clock.
It's
there was-
8:24.
There was another clock someplace that I could reach, and so I said, should I fix this? And I fixed it, but that one's too tall. Yeah. Hey, as they said, at least we didn't take 4 hours.
The what?
The 4-hour sessions?
It's been 4 hours?
No, the 3 4-hour sessions when they were going round and round with the council. That was torture.
Oh, I see. But why did they put this in there? I don't know. That's,
They made an agreement, right? So it was all done. Supposedly they wrapped it up, and then all of a sudden this agreement came out of nowhere.
yeah.
So whenever you're ready. Whenever the commission is ready. Okay, we're back on, Ida. Thank you.
We are on item number 3, the California State Ojai Historic District. Do we have a staff report?
Sure thing. So this is item number 3, excuse me. And California State Downtown Ojai Historic District. The recommendation for this is to receive the committee's report. And did I have the ad hoc committee correct with McHatton and Walker?
Can I talk about that?
Yes.
Okay. So we had talked about separating it between maybe having 2 ad hocs, with 2 people each, and doing one that's working on the celebration part of it and how we can tie it into Ojai Day and to the museum and to, and then the other side of it, which is knowing that we do have this state historic district, looking at the benefits that we can offer to property owners and working on education materials for them as far as using the California Historical Building Code, and then maybe doing a presentation at some point to council, not at our joint council meeting, but in the future, about overlays, combining overlays, reducing or eliminating fees and all that stuff. So can we have 2 ad hocs, one more nuts and bolts for the property owners and their benefits, and one for the celebration?
Well, legal question. Yeah, you could have 2 different ad hocs. Generally, I'm not really sure what the practice has been for this commission or for the city, because I'm pretty new. But generally, the way I treat ad hocs is as follows. Because a true ad hoc, where it's needs to be 4 things: less than a quorum of the body, for a limited time, for a limited purpose. If it meets these characteristics, and it doesn't make any decisions, it's only advisory. If it meets these conditions, then I always say the chair can create ad hocs whenever she wants, as many as she wants, and so long as she has people to sit on those ad hocs, feel free.
Okay.
So it's one broad topic, but it's 2 different subjects within that broad topic. So the fact that they're majority, but they're separate 2 and 2 is okay.
I think that's fine, and it's not subject to the Brown Act, so, yeah.
Okay. We just don't want to cross our streams. Sorry,
Right.
Ghostbusters reference. I always think of it like,
So who are the ad hoc then for the celebration, and who are the ad hoc for the benefit to the property owners?
Well, I would like to serve on the celebration side, but I don't know.
I should be on the property side.
Mm-hmm.
What's the question?
What did you want to be on the celebration side, the Ojai Day, getting the plaque? That's the side probably that you and I were working on that you want to stay on. Because
Okay.
you talked with the museum, we've talked, you're the one who brought Ojai Day back, so I mean, you're kind of Mr. Ojai Day, so, okay.
Sure.
And then does anybody want to work with Brian on learning about benefits for the property owners and reaching out, no? You might be alone on this.
Yeah, I was alone the first time.
Well, we already started that, but we can send you what we have.
Okay.
Craig and I were working on that.
But not for the State Historic District.
No.
No, this is strictly for the State Historic District, so, besides you? Okay,
Okay, so
it was?
Yeah, we included that.
So you were in both, you were with me with the State Historic District and then with Randy doing
It
benefits
was
for-
confusing, but I can send you what we've
Okay.
brainstormed if you want.
Okay, that wouldn't be to me, it would be to Brian.
Okay, so Commissioner Walker is going to be sending information to Commissioner Akins, who is going to be his solo ad hoc.
Could be.
Okay?
And Chair, if you don't mind defining real quick, what is the duration of this committee? What is the purpose of this committee? And what recommendation they should be providing on what?
Okay, so we have there was a district, there was a State Historic District, I don't know if you're familiar with it. It was a project for a pedestrian project by, what's it called? The ATP, but what's the organization? The Caltrans. And while they were discovering Ojai Avenue and looking into it, they figured out it was a downtown historic district, and they ended up contacting an agency who looked it over, and it became a state historic district. And we never knew it. It kind of just came to the city, and it went on a shelf someplace. We, during COVID, were working on a local historic district. We found it, and several years into working on it, and we also shelved it because our focus was as local. And when I became chair, I asked if we could shelf the local district for till Ojai Day, and take the state district and let the community know about it. The community does not know we have a state district. We don't have a plaque. We never had a ribbon cutting, a celebration. I mean, it's a cool thing, you know, and tied into the museum with maybe if they don't have the space or the time, we can do it in the courtyard. It could be just for Ojai Day or something like that. And so that is where we're at, is educating the public and celebrating this amazing thing that happened to us, that we didn't, you know, the state historic district, and with a plaque.
So,
and then the other side of it is to, one of the things we focused on a lot with the local district is what we can do for our property owners. How can the property owners benefit? Everything is a give and take with preservation. It's like, you know, we're asking them to be stewards of this property and to care for it like a landmark. So then what can we give you? And so that became looking at things like getting permission from the city, which we did, to use the California State Historical Building Code, and also possibly working with planning. That was on their agenda last month to talk about overlays and to maybe simplify the overlays if you're in the state historic district, so it's not so much that they have to do every time anything comes to them that they want to do to their building. And then on top of that, maybe doing what a lot of other communities do, which is eliminating or reducing fees if you're part of a contributing property in the state district. So
for the ad hoc, we're going to have to determine when it expires, because it has to be temporary. So when does the ad hoc expire?
Ojai Day is in October, so November 1st.
So both ad hocs are going to expire November 1st?
Does that sound reasonable, that we can get a plaque and get everything by November 1st? Should we just say December 31st, give it that extra month in case we're waiting on something? Yeah.
Yeah, it shouldn't last more than a year, but
Yeah.
December 31st. And then this ad hoc isn't actually authorizing an expenditure or voting on anything, right? It's going to be making a recommendation to this body?
Well,
We provide our own Christmas stamps.
when we
Inside joke.
when we sent letters out to the community, we couldn't even get staff money for stamps. We used his Christmas stamps, so it's kind of a joke between us.
My wife's Christmas.
But yes, everything that happens in our ad hocs always comes back to this body.
Okay, good.
And then this body will then vote on it and decide what we want to do with it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question for our attorney. This came up 1 or 2 meetings ago about Randy being able to participate when there are Mills Acts, remember? Maura, you want to fill him in on that? Because that was a little bit like he was.
It's not a topic this evening, so it's not.
Happy to talk to you about it after the meeting.
Well, if it's not a
Okay.
topic, 'cause
Yeah,
I
you can
will-
talk
I do
after
wanna-
the meeting, he said.
Yeah, I do want to bring it up in commissioner comments because she does have the benefit of having a Mills Act property, but not currently. So it's a real advantage to us to have somebody with the knowledge without the tanglement.
Let's discuss it after the meeting.
Okay, thank you. So back to this. Is there anyone else that has celebratory skills, putting together? Does anybody else want to be on that side of it? Because we could have 3. I do. You do? Yeah. All right. I like to party. Okay. So let's add Loran to the that side. And are we sure no one wants to help poor Brian work on this?
So just to clarify and to keep open, and I raised these issues 2 months ago when the decision was to go to the State Historic District. So knowing what we did on the Ojai Civic Center Historic District, that we didn't start.
Please turn on your microphone.
Sorry, thank you. We didn't start on any outreach until we had talked to and got the go-ahead with the city council. And so, and then we went through a whole process that's specified by the code. In this case, we've had for your benefit, we've had the State Historic District ever since the city they're doing an alternative transportation project with Caltrans. So they went to Caltrans. The Caltrans came to us in the fall of 2017 and said, hey, we're going to do a study on curbs, gutters, and sidewalks. We just wanted to let you know in case they're historic ones. We said, fine. 2 years later, we got their report. It had arrived 2 years earlier, but so, we did the Downtown Historic District. But we did all of these different things, and of course, per the code, we had to contact the parcel owners. We had to get 50% plus one, so we worked on that through the year. The city council ended up pausing us, and then we got a go-ahead. So I was meeting with Andy. I asked Andy to please
Andy, Mayor Andy or Councilman?
Oh, sorry, Mayor Andy. Although I met Councilman Randy at another event. I asked him to please check with legal because right now we are have picked up the idea of the State Historic District, which was imposed by them, not anything that we did. We're running with that. We're celebrating it. It is important. It governs a smaller portion than what we had on the Ojai Civic Center Historic District. Once it was put in place, CEQA requirements were put in place, because when I talked to people about that, I also mentioned the State Historic District. But my question is, and this is kind of self-protective, is we really don't have any okay from council to move forward. And even with that, what are on the city code, on the local district, again, we had to contact all of these parcel owners. And now we're celebrating a State Historic District that's also going to encompass their property, but
It already does. Well,
Yes.
what she said last month was that we didn't need, because it already happened, we didn't need council permission to celebrate it because it already happened. But it is on our list to talk about our next item because I do want them to know.
Absolutely, I agree. And so all I wanted to do was get clarification, because there are individuals who, in this community, who will think that we went around behind their backs in order to move forward.
Well,
And-
that's where I guess we come in too, is the education part of it, to let them know that, coming up with maybe a
Yeah.
flyer or something.
Yeah, so I just want to get, the thumbs up before we put a lot of energy into something and then end up on the front page of the Ojai Valley News.
No, we might,
Yeah.
but only for good reasons.
Yeah.
I've talked to Laura Ward about the celebration, and she's putting me in touch with another writer, and she was very supportive of celebrating it as well. And I talked to the city manager about putting it into the flyer that goes out to everybody, the newsletter, and he was very supportive of that. So there's going to be a lot more ways to just let them know that this is something that already happened, that we're celebrating,
Right.
rather than this is something that we're working on. Because we're not working on anything except benefits, which is never a bad thing, right? I mean, I can't imagine anybody going, no, don't give me those mean old benefits,
Right.
and celebration. So I don't imagine we're going to run into problems, and the fact that it's already happened, and we're on the Byrd document, and we're on all the documents that say that we are already a district. I don't foresee any issues.
And you can always raise this I see you have a
Right, and we are.
upcoming HPCCC joint meeting.
Right,
This is one of those things to talk about.
Yeah, and it is.
And that's why,
Yeah.
I wanted to get it, I know Morris gave thoughts to the last meeting, but she had talked to Lucas. No one had talked to legal. And so I just wanted to get a legal opinion, up or down, especially since we can't talk to legal
Up or down
anymore.
about what?
Up or down on proceeding with our efforts on the state historic district.
Okay, so we.
Oh, you
just-
mean like getting the plaque?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have approval from the
Right,
city
no,
council.
I
to do a
understand.
plaque.
It's not really a legal question, there's a policy question. And
True.
as a policy matter, I think it's always a good idea to
Yeah.
get approval from either council or the city manager.
Well,
Because
that's,
these are our two decision makers.
yeah,
But it's
I've
import-
talked to the community development director, I talked to the city manager, I talked to
I
the
think you're
mayor,
okay.
and then I added it onto our joint council
Yeah,
meeting.
good.
So,
And it's important for people to know that being on the State Historic District is what it is. You know, it only subjects you to further state, you know, inspection of the property or whatever under CEQA. But all the benefits are totally voluntary. They want to use the State Historic Building Code, they can. They don't have to. They don't have to file for the tax break. It's
right, but
all-
that's
I
one of
agree-
the
yeah,
problems
agree
is,
with everything you just said, and again, everybody, I talked to all the parcel owners, I told them that there was a state historic district. They asked, well, what's the impact of that? I gave the impact, mainly it had to do with the CEQA, like
Right.
Pac Bell having to do a historic resources report for the
Right.
thing on top. So
but this,
it was
your,
conveyed to them, but
so your job,
now we're doing different.
yeah, your job is not necessarily contacting parcel owners, you're contacting more like planning and more like, you know, the city and doing research and figuring out all the ways that, or looking at other cities, what they do and what kind of benefits they have for their districts, and then coming back here and suggesting, and then going to plan, you know, asking, because we asked to have, to be on their ad hoc, that they couldn't find anybody to be
Well-
on their ad hoc at all.
Well, we developed a whole list. Should we just give these to him to start?
Is this a
Yeah,
different
yeah.
one from the one we did before, the FAQs?
Yeah.
Okay,
And, yeah, so,
yeah, that'd be great.
like with the historical building,
Thank you, Craig.
no one's ever used it. When I asked, we asked to look and see what's the procedure when someone uses it, and we found out that it's never been used, and that's on us. I mean, as we learned about it, and, you know, in the classes that we're taking, it's our responsibility to let these property owners know what's available to them. So, I mean, anytime there's free money or a different sort of code that they can follow that's more lenient, I mean, it's our job to let them know that. So I think that's how I think that we have to proceed, is just knowledge. It's just what can we do for them, and so then next year when we come back with the local district, they'll be more open to us, right? So I think that's it for.
I am ever optimistic.
Yep. So we can go to item 4 now?
Yeah.
Do you have this is on the Ojai Valley Trail plaques?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So at the February 13th meeting, the HPC received a report from Commissioner Walker, and the commission discussed results. The discussion resulted in direction for the ad hoc to continue conducting research and report back to the commission at next month's meeting, which is now. And so if there is a report regarding the Ojai Trail plaques, I'll turn it over to you, Commissioner Walker.
And was it Walker with Rick, or
The
just?
two of us.
Okay, so can
I'm
we
sorry,
add?
so it's Walker with Basasha?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
So
you.
we don't have a whole lot to present. We just got a map from Maura that shows the section of the trail that's owned by the city. And the sections are between the whole section of the trail that goes through Libby Park. Apparently, that's owned by the city, and the city is responsible for that. And then the section of it that goes between Fox Street and Fulton Street, that section is owned by the city, according to your map that you gave me. So we wouldn't even need to go to the county to get started. We could actually just kind of look at the areas that we already have and see what we can do there.
Okay, can I provide an update, Chair?
Yes.
Okay, so on Monday, I'm member of the Oakview Advisory Commission. We're a commission that was put in place by Mount Levere in order to advise him on items that affect the community of Oakview. In that meeting, because again, we have a bike trail that goes through our community and other recreation activities, we also had Coulter Chisholm. He is the Ventura County Parks and Rec person over Parks and Rec. He has other titles to it. And so he was there. We've been in each of our meetings talking about the bike trail because, again, it comes through and we use it a lot. And he said that, and so in talking about where the the owners are of that property, he said, and currently that there's a project coming, all the way up. Fortunately, has come through Oakview. We love it. Horse riders, not so much, but they are, so that's a county that's doing that work under a grant, again, coming all the way from Surfers Point all the way up to, and so the thinking was that as soon as the county finishes spending the money to redo the trail, then the city's going to take it over, maintenance and everything else to do with that. So that was good news.
That last part.
That once the county finishes with their grant that's redoing the trail, repaving then the city will take over the portion that's within the city.
Oh, okay.
So that's just an update that ties in with what the two
Well,
of
it
you
just
do.
seemed like we could get maybe started to consider it for the Ojai properties where we wouldn't even have to go to the county.
Yeah, and
But
you
we
wouldn't
could
if the
go to the
city takes it
county
over.
and then see if we can get a partnership with them. And then maybe we could talk to the museum and the Chamber of Commerce and see if they're interested in being a part of it in some way. And then I suppose at some point we would want to talk to the Public Works Director and see where, if anywhere, one of these signages would work on the trail. What would be reasonable in terms of not being a safety danger or whatever other issues might come up. So I'm not sure at what point we would do that, but just at some point go down and talk to them.
And then I spoke to Kathy Nolan today, and I brought up the trail markers because I figured the Ojai Green Coalition and might have some sort of overlap. I think our strength is whenever we could overlap with other organizations, and she also suggested the chamber because we were talking about getting sponsors from businesses to sponsor the things to cut down on the costs, but she wanted to give her support and thought it was a really good idea.
Great.
So what's next? What would be next month for the plaques, Craig? Do you want to try to contact the museum and Public Works and the chamber, you guys, and then report back next month?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Can we go on to item number 5? This is our
Item
joint-
number 5 is regarding the joint meeting
Yes.
on March 25th. And so the meeting is scheduled from 5 to 6. And we have here from the February 13th meeting some topics, and tonight, I'll say what the topics are. However, tonight, you're here to discuss and confirm the topics that you want to present to the council. And the topics that we understood came from the February 13th meeting were to update the Historic Resources Inventory Survey, discuss the plaque for State Historic District, and consider lowering or waiving fees for historic landmark designation. And after hearing from the chair, I understand that this third one is not accurate. However, instead of reading what is more accurate, you're here to discuss and confirm what it is that you want to discuss at the meeting anyway. So how about we just open it up and you start with either that one to
Okay.
correct it, or start with the first one?
Well, I just want to let you know that I met with the Community Development Director, and then I met with the City Manager, and I met with the Mayor. to go over this list because that's a tight 60 minutes, and we want to make sure that we're all on the same page and we can get through it really quickly. The three that I discussed, which I was under the impression are how we felt when we left, was the update to the historic resources inventory, the plaque for the state district / celebration tying into Ojai Day, sort of thing, letting them know that it's not just a plaque, but we want to celebrate it throughout the year somehow. And then the last was direction from council on how the historic preservation conducts our business. So what I had written to Maura is, I think why it was confusing when listening back is that all the problems that we have had or have is because we don't feel like we're in alignment with the city and or council, and we request maybe a committee or a special meeting to go over the ordinance for historic preservation to make sure that we are making ourselves as valuable as we can. Being appointed by council, we want to make sure that we are following the rules in the way that we are supposed to, maybe by creating a flow chart so we aren't frustrating the city and we aren't being frustrated or feeling like we're wasting our time. So all that was discussed in a messy, circular fashion, my apologies as I'm working on learning how to do this, is whether it's the structures of merit or council chambers or fire resilient Ojai or the survey, or when we're notified for planning commission meetings or landmarks or whatever comes up next. There seems to be a flow issue. We don't know when we're supposed to go to the city and when we're supposed to go to council. We're looking at our ordinance and we're deciphering it in one direction, and maybe the city or council might be in a different. We just want to find we don't want to be parallel to what is a more successful route. To prevent us in the future feeling struck down or underappreciated, we feel it's crucial to get direction from council and city staff input on the current interpretation of how we follow our HPC ordinance. So that is what I thought we all discussed. Am I correct here? Yes. Yeah? Okay, so yeah, that.
I think what you just said should be number one, because that could take an hour.
Yep.
Yeah.
The plaque is not gonna, everything else.
We can't hear you.
Sorry, I forget to do that. I just said that the first one what Gina just read is the most important thing, because everything else can just, yes, nothing can happen or lots can happen, but we need to know that.
Right, but I don't think if you could think of it like the city manager was saying, 2020, and that's not even counting sitting down and introducing and doing pledge and, any sort of other maintenance you have to do with a meeting, is even less. We're lucky if it's 15. And with that, if I read this, something like this, the goal would be not to make a decision, because you're not going to go get out the ordinance and sit and stare at it and decide, is to, what was suggested to me is to form some sort of a special meeting or committee that we figure it out, like what's expected of us. So, we're useful and we're helpful, and we're not banging our heads against the wall because we work on something for a year and a half and figure out that it wasn't the way it was supposed to be done, or, we want to be smart about our time, and we want to be helpful and useful. And so that is, so I don't think we're going to get a solution, but we'll get permission to meet at another time. I'd love to know what you think about that, Kim.
I think it's a great idea. Another thing, too, to let you know that we, as a city council, we're working on our goals. And one of our goals is communication and relationships. And I think this falls, as far as I'm concerned, this falls into that category, because you're not the only commission that feels unappreciated, the direction, all of that stuff. It seems to be poor across the board. So it's something that we're definitely going to work on. It's our goal. And there was something else I wanted to say. Oh, and then I'm wondering if some of the questions that you have fall into the category of the new handbook, the commission handbook.
Yes, I
That's
plan on
gonna
reading
be
that this weekend.
Okay, perfect. So when the meeting that they're having, I think it's the 18th and the 19th, or it's 2 nights. You have an evening choice or a morning choice. And then that will be brought up too. So if you could go through the handbook, because I feel it's an important thing too, that have the commissioners' input, because you see things totally different than we see them. So if you can make notes before or whatever, or, and we can work together to get that dialed in as well. So I don't know if that helps.
And then the other items, the plaque and celebration for the State Historic District, I don't think that's going to take a lot of time. I think I could, when I said it to the city manager, he goes, that's a perfect elevator pitch. Keep it just like that, because I just kind of said it. So hopefully we can get, just.
I think that would be nice, and I think it would be nice to include, the council, because it's quite a celebration.
Yeah.
So, when you were sitting down, like, I like to party, so do I. So maybe there's things, we can come together, but my head's clicking like all the cool things that we could do for the community for that, because it's great.
Yeah. Okay, and then the last one is, so this is something that, the reason I asked to have a meeting with the city manager is because there was this realization, I always do stupid analogies, but that we were pushing really hard for the cheap chicken dinner when they were trying to give us steak. And I feel like we need to step back and just kind of think about it. And with the update to right now, we are out of compliance with our survey for our list of resources. And it was done in 2011. It's 14 years out of date.
A little out of date.
Updated every 5 years. We, many of us went to a class this morning on CEQA law, and we learned once again that having it updated, having that survey list is something that is really important, having it updated. So we asked, when there was the windfall money, if we could, the person who did it before, with St. Buenaventura Group, if they could come in and do it again, how much it would cost. We asked how much it would be for an update. They said around $8,000. It's the minimum that we could do to stay in compliance.
Okay.
It's not a comprehensive list, but it would get us back on at least target. So that is what we were focusing on. Then when we brought in the structures of merit, everything kind of went haywire. When the city manager did a staff report that was completely something that we weren't expecting. And we were offended, we were angry, because it was like out of left field. It was like, what is going on? Because usually we have an idea what's going to be in the report. And so when it was something when we got our packet, it was so odd, Brian went to Ben and had the item just pulled. And then we were trying to understand why he would want to do something so comprehensive when we didn't need to. And we just kind of, I think, as a knee-jerk reaction, we all just kind of went like this and kept with our cheaper chicken. And then another person in our community that we go to for information asked us why we were so, that other cities would love to be in our situation. We have a mayor who is not anti-preservation. We have a city council that's not anti-preservation, that wants to keep Ojai. We have a city staff, we have a city manager who really understands preservation in a way that I think we have underused, because he does have a wealth of knowledge when it comes to preservation. And we just kind of, we are in a situation where that might not happen again. That might not happen in 10 years from now. This is where we are now. So if we have a city manager who wants to make an actual investment in the HPC, in historic preservation, to do an actual comprehensive list that has an IFQ, gets bids, and it is done by an outside organization where we stay out of it, but they'll always call Craig, because they call Craig anyway, because he knows everything, and that it's actually done and timely. It's not like kick the can down the road, and we actually get something that is adopted by the city, because the city has now made this investment. So it's gonna be more of an encouragement to adopt something that is more comprehensive. And it would be a great tool for everybody, including realtors, when they're
Oh,
looking.
I absolutely agree,
Right.
to inform a potential
'Cause it-
buyer.
Yeah,
Mhm.
for both ways, because like if I tore down my house and I found out that George Washington slept there and no one told me, I'd be really mad.
Right.
So to be able to look at this, you never know, to look at this list and to be able to either encourage or discourage your buyer depending on what they're looking for, it's valuable to everybody. So in my head, I started thinking of, okay, I think of things pre-COVID, post-COVID. Pre-COVID, we were getting about $20,000 a year in our budget to do like 2 to 3 historic reports a year. When COVID happened, we decided we are going to focus on the local district, and we stopped asking for money. I don't think we used a dime. We used his stamps. You know,
I
we
heard
didn't
that.
use a dime. Huh?
Oh, I wanted to, I was trying to figure out where we were on the agenda, because
Right,
I don't think.
we're on the topic of historic inventory, because if this is something that we need to decide as a group, if this is the way we're gonna go. So, if we were to look at, I know you don't do budgets, is, you know, if you have $20,000 and you don't use it, you don't have 40,000 the next year.
Right.
But if you think about just over the last 5 years, and if you think $20,000 a year, that's $120,000 that hasn't been invested into HPC. If the city was to follow the city manager's advice and do a comprehensive survey of the list of the inventory, and it's the HPC that's against it, it seems really counterintuitive to the HPC, because why would we be against something that's more comprehensive than the minimum update that we would do? So I just kind of wanted to open it up. You can sit back down, I'm sorry.
Okay.
But I wanted
No,
to
I
open
was,
it
I
up
was
to
just
see.
thinking with that, because, you know, with your time limited and we do have the joint meeting and all that, and Maura, you can step up because, you know, I'm new to this. So I'm just thinking, like, if an email or something, you know, for the sake of time or whatever, to Mr. Harvey and whoever else it has to go to, and a copy to the council with here's what you want, so we can look, everybody will see it. And then if we wanted to do some, you know, each council member could reply. Of course, you can't do it together because of the
Right.
Brown Act, but to reach out and say, oh, okay, here's something, you know what I mean? Where we
Right.
could,
It'd be nice
I'm not
if
sure
everybody
about-
came in.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. However, before the joint meeting, what staff would like to do is to get something together regarding what it is that the commission wants to discuss at the joint meeting.
yeah, and I think that would be great then, right, to
yeah.
get something together, share it with us beforehand, so we can
Exactly.
come, and then when you present what you're gonna present,
That's-
we're already educated on it
So-
instead
That's
of,
very
So we have
efficient. We
these
don't
three
want to walk
things.
We
in
could get-
without you knowing anything.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have these 3 things. We have the update to the the plaque, the other version of it, the direction the council wants of the HPC conducts our business. The third is update to the historic resources inventory survey. Do you think we should go forward with a more comprehensive one, or do you think we should stick with our original plan and try to get the one from Mitch that's an update to the one that we currently have?
You're talking about the survey?
Not structures of merit, just the survey.
I didn't say structures and
I know,
merit.
I just
said
wanted
survey.
to,
Also, it seemed like you said something where the HPC was against the survey.
no, when Ben, when that, the thing came out on the structures of merit,
Yeah,
it-
had nothing to
that's-
do with the survey.
right,
Well,
but
actually, it did.
he combined it, yeah.
Staff recommended that the structures of merit and the survey be
Right.
tied together
Right?
and evaluated by a historian or
Correct.
by a firm, and to wrap them together.
And when we saw that, we just kind of closed our ears and eyes to it. And what I'm trying to do is,
But we did
is-
not pull it because of the survey.
no, we pulled it because of structures of merit.
We pulled it because of the directions we were getting that weren't from the council,
Right,
which is what we're working to clarify on the.
on the other item,
Yeah, and to me, that's number one.
right. But so,
Because otherwise, I don't see how we're gonna go forward on the structures of merit.
But we don't have to.
if, yeah,
We
I
do
mean,
have to go.
no, because if we do a really comprehensive inventory survey that is an investment into the HPC, the structures of merit becomes moot. It becomes more of a, something that you maybe somebody who doesn't want to landmark their property, they decide they want to add to it, rather, they,
have the structures of merit.
Right, I'm
It's
just
in
saying.
It's in the ordinance, we don't have to create it.
Right, we don't have to
It's
create,
there.
but,
All we do is
but that
recommend
structures of,
properties for it.
that structures of merit will then be tied, you can look at the ordinance, if this outside organization says that it's, that it's worthy of being on the structures of merit list, that then makes it a lot easier for it to go to council if it's,
Well, it's always easier to have a survey to pick from, and I'm sure almost all of the ones that we were recommending are already on the survey that we have. I mean,
Right.
we tend to look at them and see if they're a 1 or a 3, and if they are, then those are ones that we feel could be eligible for being, and then we vet them further. But yeah,
But as far as
it shouldn't be
protection-
that some outside person comes in and does our job for us.
right. I'm
Right,
just saying,
exactly.
for protection though, if we have a comprehensive survey that's adopted by the city and it's a number 1 on there,
That would be
whether or not it
beneficial.
was on the structures of merit, it's still gonna be protected. It can be, but like,
Oh, I
I'm
agree.
saying
I
it's
think
on
it's
both.
good to have the survey, because the survey is what the planners can use to decide which properties should be studied
And if
further.
it's an outside organization that does it with us, then it's at least, keeps it not political. It doesn't, it's like, well, the HPC wants this. It's like, no, this is an investment that the city made, and, this is, it's not it's a comprehensive, survey.
Well, I
And-
think the state expects you to have that, so.
Yeah, but, and we have an opportunity to ask for it, because the city manager is in support of doing a comprehensive survey and investing in the HPC. So, I asked him if he was interested in, in investing in, and he felt that it was a reasonable amount to invest in something that would be a valuable asset to the HPC.
You're talking about the survey.
Not just the survey.
Yes, that's what I said.
Because I don't know if this would be helpful for you in the working agenda that was just distributed to the city council. I just noticed in here, future approved items, and the HPC, let me see here, structures of merit is something, and it has your name next to it. So I don't know, it's that it would be approved on a future agenda. So if you had,
I don't know what that is.
I'm sorry,
We're gonna figure
so
this.
I'm not sure what that is, or
Okay.
if it, does it say that it's going to be approved
it
on a
says
future agenda?
future approved by city manager to be listed.
Okay, approved to be listed.
And
That's
it's-
different than it being approved.
Okay, all right, but it's on here, so that's what I'm saying, so maybe it's
How
something.
far in the future is that?
That I don't
It's
know,
okay.
but it's just on there with your name next to it, so I didn't know if that would
Okay.
be overlapping or.
Yeah, I'm not sure, like,
So,
sorry, we don't know what that means, because there's no date or anything.
so who, yeah, please speak.
Okay, just my 2 cents for, is that I'm leaning like 75% on keeping with what has already been studied and figured out, and not hiring another firm and spending God only knows how much money to do another extra study. Investing in the HPC, I would rather see renovations that would like to be done here. I just don't want to redo something that other people have already done a ton of work on.
So again, clarification, since I was the one that initially pulled this, and I did that because it was going to the structures, it was going to, structures of merit was going to the city council. I always check printouts on city council. I checked the printout. I saw there was something else with a lot of paperwork to it. And so I called front desk, said, hey, can you print this out, a copy for me? They did. They gave that to me. I went and sat in my car. And the first thing I saw was that the HPC would put out an RFQ asking for somebody that basically was going to come in and they were going to take over we wouldn't be presenting to the city council as we had voted to do, and as is
For the structures of merit.
for the structures of merit, not the survey,
Right.
for the structures of merit, which are, as Craig just said, clearly in the guidelines, that our job is, again, we're put in place by the city council. We report to the city council, and in this case, the structures of merit, the RFQ was for somebody to be hired, say like the group that we had here. They were then gonna take the structures of merit, they were gonna look at our structures of merit, but then they were going to reassess everything on that. And then they were gonna make the presentation to the city council, not
Well, and
us.
it was like the rules were changed on us, and we didn't have a chance to even talk about it with the staff that was changing it, so, that just didn't seem appropriate to us. And also maybe it's something you can check, is that in the functions and powers of the Historic Preservation Commission, there's about 11 or 12. What do those mean? What does that mean for us? Like, it says that the HPC has the function and power to develop procedures and processes related to their work, but yet it seemed like somebody else was creating those and just putting them onto us. And I didn't see anywhere in the ordinance where that was spelled out, that was supposed to be that way. It seemed, so anyway, those are the kind of things we need cleared up, is
Right.
which
Right.
of those functions and powers
Well,
can we
that's-
actually do?
So that seems to be the
It's
third
only
thing.
made up like
Sorry.
2019, it wasn't.
Right,
Right, so
so,
that-
so this is where you are asking for clarification and direction, right here on the third thing on your list, where you're going right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
That's why I said
that's
it's really
already here,
messy.
that's already here to be discussed, so.
it's
Okay.
also.
So let's get back to what it is that you want to talk to the
So-
council about.
So we want to talk about, we know the direction of how we conduct our business, and we understand the plaque and the celebration. Right now, we're trying to decide, I just had to give some sort of a background of where this comprehensive survey came up, because I met with the city manager right after that, and I was really upset about the way the structures of merit kind of got ahead of, away from us after we worked on it for a year and a half and we voted on it. And we were talking it was like we had two different languages. He's talking about this comprehensive survey, I'm talking about the structures of merit. He says it's the same thing, I'm saying it's not. And it was so convoluted that I was so confused, I just, I couldn't wrap my head around it. And it wasn't until months later when we were putting our joint council meeting and I'm writing the survey that I asked Maura, I said, I really, before we just, have this knee-jerk reaction, maybe I should hear him out. Maybe I should see what kind of investment he wants to make into the HPC. And that was when I asked to have a meeting with him. And it seems that he believes that the city council would want to make an investment in the HPC and have a comprehensive list. He felt that the best way to do it is to, not for anything else that we do and how we conduct our business, but just for that, we should try to step away from it, except for have a liaison like Craig, at their discretion, because it keeps us clean, keeps the city clean, it keeps us, it's done by an outside company. So that, but we would be in the loop, they would come to our meetings, they would update on us what was happening, so he said that we would be in the process of it. And so it seemed like the HPC shouldn't be the ones that don't want an investment into the HPC.
Yeah, and I don't understand the investment in the HPC, because basically you have taken us on our responsibilities that we have that's code provided. What we worked all this time, and it was right about to go to the council.
But you're talking about the structures of merit. I'm only talking about how we want to update our out-of-date survey with something that's bigger or something that's done by Mitch that doesn't seem to have the support of the city staff.
Okay, so if you're only talking about the survey.
That's it, just the survey.
Okay, I'm all for a survey. I've been talking about it ever since. I talked about it in the council meeting.
Well, when,
Okay, but the question, so the question for the joint council meeting
Who's Mitch?
is, do we take our guidance from the council?
Well, now that is about how we run our business. So that's separate. All I want to know is when we are talking for 15 minutes on the survey,
Oh,
am
Mitch
I
is
trying
Judy's
to
partner.
get support for the large,
Judy
a more
Judy
comprehensive
Trian's
survey or just an
partner,
update to the
thinking.
current survey? Which one do we want to put forward? Because you can't put forward both, because then we're asking the council to decide, and it should come from us what we think is best.
I think
So-
if they're willing to do the comprehensive survey, which is basically just an update, because the 2011 one is comprehensive. It covers 2,900 properties in the city of Ojai. So the fact is, if it's 14 years ago, there's some properties like the Humane Society building that wasn't eligible to be a Category 1 because it was not old enough. And so
Right.
you have to kind of catch all those properties that have
But, I mean-
become historic since then.
I did, when I talked to Mitch, though, trying to get down to as low as we could with that $8,000 figure, it was just looking at it, not going by all the properties, just going by the properties that are now 50 years old, or that, but it wasn't like going,
I think if the council's willing to pay for one that is good, a better one and more involved, then why not? You
I
know?
don't see why not either.
Gina, it seems like, and I could be wrong here, I'm just kind of putting this out there, is you're thinking that if you spend more money and get something grander, that the council will take us more seriously?
I think, well, if, that's a weird question, but it's true. I think that if they agree to that sort of an investment, then they're part of it too, and there may be more of a chance that it gets adopted because they were part of the decision-making to do a comprehensive survey, to make the investment in it. So they're already, it's not like we're coming to them with just this piece that we wanted to do, and now we're asking them to adopt it, that they didn't adopt it last time. So we're asking them to basically adopt the same thing that they didn't adopt last time. So maybe if they are part of the decision, and we bring it up at a joint council meeting, and they make the investment, and it's done by an outside company, and it becomes this tool not only for us and the city staff, but for realtors and other people, then it'll get adopted. And adoption is really important part of this.
So, I totally get that. If the more skin in the game the more commitment someone has, the more ownership they have of it. But it seems like, as an alternative strategy, you might present both of these ideas to the city council. You want, for $8,000, we can get an update from from a Ventura-based expert who we use all the time, or we could spend $60,000 or whatever, and get an outside firm who the city manager has worked with in the past.
Well,
To do it.
it would go to bid, so it wouldn't necessarily be who he worked with, it would be,
Okay,
Yeah.
and let them decide, and then they're committing, and that's putting some skin in the game.
right.
Okay, but the outside firm for which to do an RFQ wasn't to get a more comprehensive survey. It was to take over the structures of merit.
No.
It was. I was in the meeting.
Right, but
I
not what
talked to staff.
Okay, but what my meeting
No,
was
no, I'm-
with Ben last week
Okay.
had nothing to do with the structures of merit, was
Survey.
just this item.
Survey.
Just survey.
Yes.
And the reason why I brought that up was because I felt like he had brought it up in a different way, and we were so mad about how it was done that we didn't really think that maybe we could actually get something more comprehensive done or something. But since I sat down with him and I asked, all the questions, and Craig was my person that I talked to, so I was like, what is your, what are the things that you would suggest? And it was like, that it wasn't, the can wasn't just kicked, that it wasn't just, maybe 2026 or 20, that it actually would start, and that, we would have a liaison at their discretion to call, because everyone always calls Craig anyway, But, so
At
that.
whose discretion? The people that were doing the
putting-
survey?
Yeah, they had questions that
It's
that
like
would be our
that one
liaison.
survey that was done at the Downtown Historic District. Have you looked through that for each building? They have
The
a-
Caltrans one.
the form that has everything spelled out. Well, it would be more on that level. So I suppose if the city were involved in some dispute with someone, it would also be a little stronger support than just the windshield survey, which is what
Mitch would update.
he did, yeah.
Okay, so fine. Are we done talking about survey? Agree with survey to get whatever we can by whatever agency you're gonna use to get that. Loran, I was there at every council meeting putting it forward.
We're
so-
done with the structures of merit.
No, we're not.
Yes.
Yes, we are.
It's been
Subject
shelved,
is
and all
closed.
we're doing now is getting direction so we know how to bring the structures of merit back.
Yes.
Because
Before, to bring the structures of merit back to what? To us?
to us,
To go
this
where?
this item, the direction from council of how the HBC conducts our business, I wrote in here structures of merit because that is one of the things we keep hitting a wall. So we need to find out, not on the survey item, but for the other item, the directions of council, how we conduct our business is we come up with the structures of merit, we vet this list, we then do what with it? Because according to our interpretation of our ordinance, we then bring it to council. Now, there might be something that's different. If it's different, we need to understand it because we're not interpreting the code that way. We're interpreting the code that that's the way we've done things, that's the way we've always done things. We can bring things to council. We're appointed by council, we bring things to council. So that is why
So we're
we,
gonna start all over. So we're gonna start all over.
no,
It's important that
It's
we
not
do
starting-
the very best thing we can.
It's
Whether
not
it's your
starting over.
health, your house, the city, you need to go after the very highest quality product you can find,
So,
that you can pay for.
absolutely.
And if they are willing to pay for it, then we need to
but
do
let's just go
it.
back to the structures of merit. The structures of merit, we hit a wall with. The chambers, we hit a wall with. The fire resilient Ojai, that was a huge part of just today's conversation with it's like that is a definite, we hit a wall with. So we don't understand why we keep hitting walls. So we temporarily shelved the structures of merit until we get direction from council how we need to conduct our business. Then, once we understand what they want from us, we can bring it back to our agenda, and now we're going to discuss the structures of merit. That is going to happen when the other things, how we do our business. That conversation will then solve our problem. We're obviously doing something wrong because we work a year and a half and then we get stuck. This is why this item, direction from council on how to conduct our business, that's a done deal. I read the paragraph. Everyone thought it was something that was good. It's something to get the structures of merit
Really?
back.
When did that come to anybody?
No, just now.
Just read it.
Want to read it again? It's right here. I just read it out loud. It was about,
So,
it was
so,
about how,
so we spent a year and a half doing structures of merit.
and we get nowhere.
Nope, we all voted, well, 4-1, I voted against it, and put it there in the package, was going to go there. The brick wall we hit was we have a new city manager that wanted to do it his way. He wanted to take it away from us, put it out to people like
Page and Trumbull.
Page and Trouble, have us put out an RFQ, and then they were gonna come in and they were gonna essentially do the structures of merit,
Right.
and they were gonna take it to the council, not us. We
Right.
weren't not
They
involved in
cut
that.
us
So
completely out.
that wasn't a wall, that was the city manager who had
wall.
a different,
I just don't want to call anybody out, but yeah, he's generally our
I talked
wall.
with him, I
But-
told him.
But it's because we're not communicating with him right, or we're not understanding our ordinance right. Something is wrong where we're wasting our time. And the only way to fix that we're wasting our time, where we can spend a year and a half on structures of merit and then have it be pulled away from us, is because there is a lack of communication with something.
We We did everything we did, again, been around 10 years plus. This is the third time this was going to council. It was the best it's ever been.
Absolutely.
We would have, if that line hadn't have been there, that we were going to do an RFQ to go out and do that, we would have gone to council.
Okay,
But we
so,
did.
like, this council hasn't even had a chance to see that work.
And I've
Okay.
said that all along.
All
They
right, so
made
this council that
do a
she's
thumbs
on
down.
has not seen it. So let's just
No.
do the two things. Get direction of how to communicate and the plaque, and then follow later.
No, because.
Oh,
that's a
okay,
different-
all right.
Because the
Okay.
direction is where the structures of merit
Okay, but
is.
I
The
just
survey's
mean
a
about
diff-
talking about hiring another firm. I think it's way too
That's the
soon.
city manager.
But
I
this is a-
understand
This is a
that.
different thing.
What?
What the structures of merit that
Yeah.
Brian is struggling with is the same reason why I was struggling with the fire resilient Ojai. It's,
How much
we,
time I've spent on
we start to do something and we spend time and energy doing it, and then,
We're not
so-
gonna end this 45 minutes
Right,
or so.
that's
We gotta
why-
get through all of these.
but if the, that's the thing, is we're not supposed to solve that problem we are asking for a committee to be set up between the city staff, the city council and us, so we can figure out what the city council wants from us and how we can do our business and we can feel valued. And that includes the structures of merit, because once we understand, if it's a new thing, maybe we need to make a change in code that the city manager wants everything to come to him. We're bottom of the totem pole. That might be a thing.
Exactly.
I wouldn't like it, but
Right.
but if that was a change, then that's the law we follow. So at least we know when we get done with the structures of merit, we have to bring it to the city manager and he decides whether it goes to council. That would be terrible, but that might be a thing. We need to know, because if it actually goes to, from from us to them. Did it get darker in here or something? I just felt like the lights go dark.
Just the mood. All right.
Yeah, so
Let's do that.
You understand?
So
everything we do
everybody is,
gone.
does everybody understand
Structures of merit.
what the,
All we're
that
doing
the structures of,
is nominating.
No.
No,
They're
Craig.
taking it and they're giving it.
Yeah.
Craig, all we're doing with the structures of merit currently right now,
All
Well,
what?
all we're doing with the structures of merit is it's part of the problem, and that's,
It's part of the problem, we have to solve the problem, because
Right.
otherwise we can just keep bringing these nominations and have it be under,
so that,
We have a long list of problems. That's one of them.
right. So the problem is,
Right.
so should,
Yeah.
so, this is the messy one, which is why we're not trying to solve it in 15 minutes, that we're asking for a special meeting or some sort of a group of people to help us understand our ordinance, so we aren't wasting our time or their time or making Maura cry or, wanting to kill us, one of those two things.
I don't cry.
You just want to kill us. It's those red eyes of fire that you want to kill us. But I don't want to do that. I want to enjoy my time here. We're all volunteers. We should be working for the city. We should be doing good work. And for some reason, we keep hitting a wall, and we want to fix the wall. And so that is, the wall includes the structures of merit. Separately from that, we're very out of compliance with the law for the state of California on the survey. I would like to attempt to get them to greenlight a comprehensive survey, but I'm just one person, so that's.
Well, tell me, survey, what is the survey?
Okay. This is what I'm saying, you gotta take these classes. You gotta.
Just keep waiting another couple of meetings.
Okay, it's really a very, very important question. And also, I know that Loran doesn't care if the meeting goes on too late, but I just want everybody to know that clock's not right, okay? So it hasn't sprung forward. No, it's really 9:30.
Oh my gosh.
It is.
My goal was 9.
Okay, so anyway, the survey is something that it's a what is that called? A windshield survey. It was done by a historian. That's Mitch Stone with San Buenaventura Research Associates or something like that. And it's from 2011. It hasn't.
It was paid for and asked for by city
Right.
council.
It's gone to the council 2 or 3 times and has not been adopted. It evaluates. It evaluated properties, and there are properties in there that are listed as a 1, 2, or 3, and then the survey describes what is recommended if you're listed as a 1, 2, or 3. For instance, if it's a property that's listed as a number 1, it's recommended that that they do a historic resources report before doing anything to the property. And so you received an email recently, I believe, regarding a property that was on that survey. Okay, so was it a barn? Anyway, that's the survey that they're talking about, and that's the survey that we are looking at, you know. So if that survey is adopted, then it would be a requirement that it be reviewed when a project comes in. Now, again, the survey makes a recommendation. So if we say to somebody, you know, you're number 1 on the survey and we strongly recommend that you do a historic resources report, they can say, fantastic, we don't want to. But anyway, this document has not been adopted by the council, and what the commission is talking about tonight is, do you want to discuss this with the council is this something that you want to be updated?
Definitely want
And
it
for you to ultimately adopt.
Right.
That's what
we
so the
agreed
question
on
is,
that, but it's just which version? That's the question. Do I go
which
to?
version?
Yeah, do I go to
Oh.
city council with the one that's more of an investment, or do I go to the one that's an
Well,
update from Mitch?
And you already know, most of you, I guess there are 2 of you, whoever, it's that staff made a recommendation previously that this document be tied into the structures of merit and be updated, reviewed and updated by a firm where we go out and do an RFP and, get bids and thus and such, as opposed to having it updated by just simply saying, hey, the person who did this to begin with, would you update it for us? Instead of doing that, the recommendation from staff, which is probably still the same recommendation, is that we do a bigger deal with this and send out an RFQ or RFP and get other firms to submit a bid.
And I don't know.
Includes the city manager.
Right, and that was my question, and I don't know how you can honestly answer that, but is that because the city manager has a vested interest in the result of that, or is that because you personally honestly think that that's a good idea?
Staff feels that it's an appropriate idea, that it's a good and appropriate idea to send it out to bid and to get a qualified, I'm not saying that anyone isn't qualified, but to get a qualified firm to evaluate this and update it.
And
Does he have a vested interest? Maybe that isn't, I don't,
well,
it's not an inappropriate question, but I don't know what that
I had
means.
heard that he, and I don't, this is just what I've heard, I wasn't around for this, but I had heard that he wanted his, I guess his associate from Pacifica or wherever he worked before to do the work.
We
I
may
don't-
be getting off topic here.
I think
Yeah.
we are totally off topic,
Gotta rein it
and
back
that
a
wouldn't be
little bit.
appropriate. I mean, to get
Okay,
off topic,
so-
or to have, or for
Either-
that,
either of
or for
those.
that scenario to be
I
accurate,
would
yeah.
get the more expensive one. Does anybody object to me attempting to get the more expensive version?
The more expensive version of
Just the survey,
just the survey,
not structures of
nothing
merit.
to do with the structures of merit.
So you're following staff's recommendation, is basically what you're
Right.
wanting to
Well,
do.
she's splitting it out, though. Because you're just talking the survey, Mara was talking the survey and
Right.
it's
Whether it's
just
together
because-
or separate, staff is most likely going to recommend the same thing that it was recommended previously, which is that we go out to bid for a firm to update, to get bids and then make a or pick one and have and have a qualified firm do the update. And I just want to address something, and that is, we sought out some, what did we seek? We were seeking support, recommendation, information from, we do this all the time with people that we previously worked with, or people that we know from other firms, other cities. The person that was talking to us was telling us what they did for their city. They're not gonna get any money in their pocket. They're not a firm, they're not a historian. They're a person who helped us figure out what it is how we wanna move forward. The person that you're talking about, that you think that the city manager, was gonna get some benefit from. So we got help, we got research, we were researching how to move forward with this. And I'm not gonna make a whole lot of sense going forward here because, anyway, so the question is, the chair is trying to get support or not regarding moving forward with
Just the
an
survey.
update to the Historic Resource Inventory Survey. And I think, let me know if I'm wrong or not, and that would be as previously recommended by staff as a process where we go out to bid from qualified historians.
Correct.
Or go out for an RFP.
Right, it
and
just
that they
happened to
submit.
come up on this other item, which is why it's making it so confusing.
Okay,
But
so
it's,
that's the question. And does everyone understand the
Well,
question?
it's not an update, though, as far as I would take this expensive
well, it's just the new one.
survey. It would be a brand-new survey.
They would be taking the survey that we have currently, and they would be updating it. It might be a different animal when it comes out, but they would be taking the
So
information
they're
that we
going to
already
take
have.
something we already have.
Yes,
not
and they're
gonna
going to
start
update
over.
it. They're going to take what we have and they're going to update it.
Because there's a lot of stuff that's happened between now and then.
Yes, so they have to update it, and that includes maybe eliminating some things that don't
And
belong in that
adding
survey
others.
and
Right,
adding others.
right.
Because
So
dates have
that is an update, yes.
14 years, there's
So
14
if you could
years
go
of-
down the line, and if we could go down the line and find out if we want to move forward with this, I don't
Yes.
think we need a second and things like that. We just need to go down the line and see.
All you need is consensus. Honestly, the board chair controls the agenda. You could make this call on your own if you wanted, but you want.
That's true.
Yeah,
It is,
I'd like
it is
to-
the chair who makes the
But,
and the
but we're not
mayor.
approving somehow tying the structures of merit to
No,
that.
that's not
Nothing
part
to
of
do with the
this.
structures of
That
Because-
is not part of this.
I don't
And
get
so-
why that has to do with it,
So what I'd like to do is just hear ayes if, in fact, you would like to move forward with talking to the city council on March 25th regarding an update to the Historic Resources Survey, and that includes going out with an RFP to get bids from different qualified historians. And so all those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Oh, wait, I guess maybe we probably need names, don't we? Like from Ida. Ida, would you take a vote, please?
Mara, before you do that, again, clarification, because you've merged the two together.
What did I merge?
The survey and the structures of merit.
No, it's just the survey. I didn't say structures of merit.
Just the
Okay.
survey.
No, I'm saying earlier in
Okay,
this conversation.
I just
you
wanted-
merged those two
Yeah,
together.
no,
So
I just wanted you to know
Just
that,
the survey.
that the staff would be recommending, as they did previously, but now it would be just for the survey, staff would more than likely be recommending that we go out to, send out an RFP. Okay?
Diane says yes. on
Okay,
whoever-
so, Ida, if you would take a roll, I think is most
I'm
appropriate.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, Mara. Does this mean that the HPC will have less money to do other things?
Most likely, yes, because it will be coming out of your budget.
What,
We haven't asked for money in a very long time, so.
they don't
This
give
is-
us money.
So the money does not accumulate from year to
Right,
year.
right,
Okay,
but I'm
so
just
what the money
saying-
you have is the money you have.
Yeah, and the city manager felt that this was an appropriate use of city funds.
Do you think it is?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, Ida,
This will
if you're,
save
if you're
homes.
still
This will
there,
save
if you're still
structures.
there and you would take a vote now, please?
Yeah. McHatton,
Yes.
Sims,
Yes.
Akins,
Yes.
Basasha,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Moore,
Okay,
Levitt.
so it's going to,
Wait
oh, I'm
for
sorry.
that.
Sorry, Levitt.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Ida.
All right, so we
Okay.
have our 3 items, and just to say it again, the first item that we're gonna do is how we conduct our business, which includes why we keep coming up to walls, which includes structures of merit, all of it. Why we keep coming up with walls, not structures of merit individually, but we just wanna understand our ordinance better. Okay, that's the first
And
thing.
the ordinance is where our direction comes from.
Correct.
I think it would be appropriate if we come up with a sentence.
It's getting together, some sort of a group to try and figure this out, to figure out why we just keep coming up to walls. Number 2, Plaque State Historic District, including a celebration and tie into Ojai Day. And
Okay.
3, update to the an inventory survey.
And I think you should be the main kind of speaker to keep the ball rolling so that we're not all just doing like this
Okay.
and we find that we're through the whole hour and we don't have time for anything, so.
Okay, and then,
Huh?
and you're not
Oh,
gonna
you
be
won't be
there.
here.
We're gonna not have, we have 5. Okay, and then, education, there was, a great seminar this morning on CEQA law that I think 4 of us attended. It's wonderful, and because we updated our membership, everyone can watch it after the fact. So anybody who wants to watch it, I highly suggest it. There's going to be a second part in a couple weeks. I also sent you one that was with the other organization, the National Trust of Historic Preservation. That is another upcoming thing. I should have blind copy out to everybody. I don't know if you did, but it's also really good. It's like $10 to go if you're not a member. I think you and I are both members. But if you can, if you haven't sent it out, if you can, I'll send it to you again just to make sure.
I'd appreciate,
Buildings.
I'd appreciate getting that tomorrow,
I don't
thanks.
wanna spend time talking about demolishing buildings.
Well, that's like, okay, there was this one that I didn't watch that Loran went to that was on San Diego. Wait, but anyway, it was really interesting. Okay, so now we're gonna go to future agenda.
Future agenda.
Okay, on this, if you go down to the list of ad hoc,
Where's that?
where it says trial plaques, can you add Rick's name to that?
Oh, yes, sure.
I'm sorry, where it says what?
Down on the list of ad hocs, where it says the trail, it says trial, but that's why I said it.
Oh.
It's trail plaques, can you
Oh, and
add
Rick.
Rick's name to there?
Yep.
Then that other one, the how to encourage property owners, that is now, that just says Walker. That's why that got confused, right? The how to encourage property owners with historic residences and when at landmarks have financial incentives. That's something different than the state one, right?
Well, it wasn't, but,
Okay. Okay, and that was you and Randy,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, we talked about that before you switched over to it. We
Okay,
talked about
so-
that with Ojai City.
So,
Centers.
Walker and Levitt was how to encourage property owners with historic residents. I don't know if we still need, I think that we need that for all the other landmarks, but we could just, can you just add Randy's name to it, since it was Randy and Walker who did that? And then, that's all I see that.
I'm sorry, did you say my name?
Yeah, just on the how to encourage property owners with historic residents, that currently is Walker and Levitt, not just Walker on his own.
Okay,
So, but that's all I see. Everything else looks fine.
thank you.
Can you pass that pen down to our legal counsel?
Does it have your name on it?
No.
Oh.
Do you want it?
If it did have your name on it, it would be valuable.
I don't think so.
No.
The other thing we need to do is their city is currently doing a budget, so April, we need to come.
Your microphone's off.
Microphone, please.
City is getting started on their budget, so in the next meeting, we should go through and determine what we want in the upcoming fiscal budget for us.
I will put that on the April 10th agenda, budget discussion.
Yeah. The other thing, Commissioner reports, is just a reminder that there's the Brown Act that's coming up. At the meeting, council meeting earlier this week, they were talking about that they are also going to review the commission handbooks, in which they made copies and were passed out tonight.
Okay.
So what that means, I don't know, but the new commission handbook was put out with Ben and Taylor. It ran through the council. I think it had unanimous support. Yeah, and so that's what it is, where it is, and I read through the first 19 pages while I was waiting for that. So that's another thing, just to remind people of that upcoming event. You can attend either one of those, and I would look through the handbook, the manual beforehand, just in case you have any questions, and you can bring it up there.
And then I do have something for next month's agenda. I met with Kathy Nolan today with the Ojai Green Coalition about this property, and she had been dealing with Commissioner Akins for the last several years. So I wanted it to come through the commission instead of just having it be inside his brain. And so I wanted to formally have him be the liaison to the Ojai Green Coalition. But I want to put it onto the agenda so we can all vote on it, make sure that, but as far as she's concerned, her liaison is Brian Akins until future notice. But
And what you wanted to do is make that more formal.
I just want to make it more formal, yeah. So we can.
That's so I can clean out the one hole that still exists from miniature golf, which I did last Saturday. Seriously, I'm like, oh,
I want to thank the attorney for coming. It's been wonderful having you here. Are you going to continue to
Just for this
hop
one
into
item.
our meetings?
Just for this one item.
Yeah, unfortunately.
You're valuable.
Oh,
We
thank
haven't
you.
had anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's challenging for the city's budget to have an attorney at the Planning Commission, City Council, and HPC.
Yes.
Thank you, though.
done. Oh, 9:45. Oh, really? Oh, yeah. 9:45.